Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider presented by FanDuel. Matthew Collar here, and today in training camp, it was the first day of pads. Oh, they were a-poppin', my friends. The trenches, there were battles going on. We even got a little contact between a corner and a wide receiver, so there was a lot going on. And of course, we will go through the entire breakdown of what each quarterback did today, and then other notes, other things that I saw at practice, your questions, your comments, and a couple of interesting things from Brian Flores today at the podium. So let us waste no time and dive right in to the quarterback. So here is for the day, the charting. And I do want to tell you a little bit about, because I mention it, I think once every other show or something like that, but I should probably mention every show how I'm determining positive and negative throws. So today, Kyler Murray threw a total of 14 passes, completed 10 of them, had 2 positives and 2 negatives, and then 10 routine throws. And for JJ McCarthy, he threw 12 passes, 7 were complete, 2 positives and 4 negatives with 5 routine. So the way that I describe a positive throw would to be either a tight window throw or one that was with anticipation, maybe a high difficulty throw over the middle, over linebackers, or if it was a tightly covered play along the sideline and the quarterback ripped it in there and only the wide receiver could get it. Or if they're doing a red zone drill, if it's a tight window or back of the end zone, higher difficulty, not impossible, but higher difficulty throws that kind of make you go, oh, okay. And there is a panel of at least 3 people, myself, and then 2 other people that I will ask with each positive throw, because there's a bunch of us sitting up there watching practice. And so I will say to Andrew Kramer, Emily Leiker, Ben Gessling, whoever's standing next to me, I will say, what did you agree? I'm going to go positive throw on that. Did you agree? I'm going to go negative throw on that. And I think that negative throws pretty well describe themselves. It's where you kind of groan. Whether it's an inaccurate ball, it was high, it was over the receiver's head, it was dirted in front of them. They had to throw it out of bounds because they couldn't find anybody to throw to when they held on to the ball forever or something like that. Is considered a negative throw. So these are a little bit, I would say, a little more liberal than Pro Football Focus in their turnover-worthy plays and big-time throws. So this is not exactly that. It's a little more willing to give a negative for just a bad play and willing to give a positive for, it wasn't Matthew Stafford throwing a no-look pass in the Super Bowl, but it was just a real nice throw. So only 2 positives and 2 negatives for Kyler Murray today, and 2 positives and 4 negatives for JJ McCarthy. So let's break down exactly where these throws happened, and then we'll go through the highlights and the lowlights for both quarterbacks, and then our overall conclusions for the first day. So for Kyler Murray, he only had 1 longer throw. It was a good throw, but it wasn't a great throw. Justin Jefferson kind of had to go down and get it, but he was open, and Kyler Murray found the open person. So that was the only ball that went plus 20. It wasn't a highlight reel play by any means, but the ball was completed. So that's routine. And that's the thing about routine throws in my little system here is, if it's like a high ball, but the receiver goes up and grabs it, okay, well, that's a completion, but it wasn't exactly what you were looking for that I put under routine. And also incompletions can be good, or completions, I guess completions hard to have them be negative unless somebody volleyed it way up in the air and it was caught. In the intermediate area, Kyler was 3 for 5 with 2 positives, 1 routine, and 2 negative throws. And then on the short stuff, of which there was a good amount from Kyler Murray today, he was 6 for 8 with 7, 8. All of them were routine. There was nothing special that happened on the underneath stuff for Kyler Murray. In terms of Kyler's highlights and lowlights, so he only had 5 first-team passing attempts. And I know you're interested in the rep counts today, where it was fairly even. So the way that it went was McCarthy started out with the 1s, and then he was even red zone 1s versus 1s. So we're like, okay, all right. And then Kyler took 6 in a row that included 3 passes, and it was a pretty big chunk of the practice in the middle. As you could tell from the number of passes, it wasn't like they threw 50 passes today. In fact, you're probably trying to catch up on some of the run stuff because you can't really get a look at that when they don't have the pads on. So there was a lot of run plays today, but Kyler ends up with only 5 first-team pass attempts, including J.J. McCarthy taking it with the ones in the situational drill. So Murray had an 11 on 11 where it was a bigger chunk of first-team reps, but then McCarthy kind of bookended, and I felt like overall rep-wise with the ones and with total passes, I think I had, 12 and 14. It was very close in the rep count overall today. So the highlights from Kyler Murray had a strong velocity throw to Gavin Bartholomew when he started out with the twos over the middle of the field, 10 to 15 yard range. And it wasn't a tight window, but it also wasn't wide open by any means either. It had to be timed out correctly and hit him right on the hands with defenders converging. Bang, got it to him. And then in the red zone, there was another tight window throw where Deshaun Jones was coming across the back of the end zone, and Murray found him again, sort of in between defenders. Had to be a really nice throw. If it was anywhere else but on the money, then probably someone would have knocked it away, but it ends up as a touchdown. So those were the two positives. And the lowlights for Kyler today had a high throw to Jordan Addison, which if you're on the internet, you will probably see it. And I'll give you a further breakdown of this play. But he threw a high ball to Addison over the middle. He went up to grab it. Isaiah Rodgers went up to try to break it up. They collided. Addison goes to the ground. Everyone was fine, but it's not exactly what you want to see from that play. And then on the situational drill, Kyler went 3 and out. And the third play on third down was a throw to who knows who. There must have been some adjustment or something that was supposed to happen. He was with the twos. He drops back. He throws it toward the sideline, and there is nobody there. Miscommunications are going to go down. Clear miscommunications like that are going to go down as negative plays on the quarterback. So let's talk a little bit more about the one that has been clipped up and sent out already, especially by a certain section of the fan base with this throw to Jordan Addison. So it was a typical play of Kevin O'Connell's where somebody runs a clear out. I think it was Jefferson, and then Addison runs the breaking route in the middle. And Isaiah Rodgers is on the other side of the field from Jordan Addison. So imagine Addison is on Murray's right, and Isaiah Rodgers is playing left outside cornerback, or on Murray's left. Technically, that's right outside cornerback, but it's on Murray's left. So Murray drops back. He does a play action and then looks up, lets it go, did not put a lot of steam on the ball. I think he needed to throw it a little harder or slightly faster. And it's high. So Addison, of course, rises up to get it. But what was happening on the other side was Isaiah Rodgers looked like he was playing man-to-man. It looked like it was a single high look, and it looked like he was playing man-to-man. And then he ducked off of the man-to-man look and undercut the route that Addison was running. I mean, honestly, it's a great play. It's a great design. It's really well done by the defense. But from Kyler Murray's perspective, he has to be able to identify that and maybe take the shot on the other side, or he has to get that ball there a little bit faster or a little bit more accurate. Still, if it was in a real game, Isaiah Rodgers would have hit Addison hard if the ball had gotten right there to him. But, you're paid to be a wide receiver and catch the ball, and you can't kill the wide receivers anymore. It would have been fine, but the ball came out inaccurate and high. And we do see a lot of ups and downs from Murray throwing over the middle of the field and the intermediate, which we've talked about a lot. And I think that Kevin O'Connell really wants to emphasize with Kyler Murray because it feels like a lot of those plays have been practiced. He drilled the one to Gavin Bartholomew. He had the one to Justin Jefferson on Saturday that was brilliant, but this one, the defense was prepared for and ends up being a negative play. So a couple positives, couple negatives, and then there was just a lot of execution underneath. So it's a little crossing route to TJ Hawkinson. It's a completion. It's a little check down. It was not by any means a bad practice, just to give you the overall for Kyler Murray, but I also wouldn't say that it was as good as Saturday, where it was outstanding. It was a little more, all right, quick throw underneath, quick completion underneath, and some ups and downs otherwise. I mean, I don't know, you'd probably give it like a B- or something. Okay. So let's take a look at JJ McCarthy in his day. Throwing deep, he had one completion, which I will talk about in the highlights. It was an excellent throw to the deep part of the field on his right side. And then on intermediate, he was 3 for 5 with one positive and one negative. And then on the underneath throws, he was only 3 for 6 and had 3 negative plays on the underneath. And 2 of them came in the last section of practice. So let's go through the positives and negatives here for JJ McCarthy. He took 7 pass attempts with the first team. So Kyler, by my tracking, had 5 attempts and McCarthy had 7. So again, like this is an even day. Now, where it goes from here, I don't know, but neither one of them had a ton of passes, but an even day. So those folks who, maybe arguing that a certain quarterback isn't getting enough chance with the ones or whatever else, there was more chance with the ones for JJ McCarthy today. And in terms of his highlights, he opened the practice with a little bit of a statement throw to open the practice. He delivered a beautiful ball, and I'm talking just flawless, to Justin Jefferson, probably 20, 25 yards down the field. I always try to add it up. I think it was about 20 because they were starting, maybe at the 50-yard line, and I'm going 40, 30. Is that where it was? So yardage is not always exact. But this throw to Jefferson, it was an out ball. It looked like to me, or a corner route, something breaking out to the sideline, and he just let it go, ripped it, delivered it on point. Perfect throw by JJ McCarthy, and the crowd, goes crazy and everything else. It was one of those really, really nice throws to start practice in the very first 11 on 11. And then when they were in the red zone, he delivered a tight window throw to Jawan Jennings. One of those where McCarthy put some extra juice on it, where you kind of hear it hit the guy, like, that's kind of right in front of us. You could hear it. And very nice play, very good throw. His red zone was fine. No real issues with his red zone. One play maybe a little slow, but he still completed a pass, and that was all right. And the low lights, though, this is where it got unfortunate for JJ McCarthy, because through most of the practice, he had a fine day, like a couple of really nice throws, no big mistakes. And then he gets 1 versus 1s in the situational drill in the last drill of the day for McCarthy. And the first throw is a slant that is inaccurate and almost intercepted and the timing didn't look right, and it was almost picked off by Isaiah Rodgers. And then to end the situational, he drops back, he lets it loose into the middle of the field, and Byron Murphy Jr. jumps right in front of it, picks it off, and goes from there. And that was the end of the practice for JJ McCarthy. So he was kind of trending toward maybe having like a B+ type of practice, but the issue with McCarthy's play as an NFL quarterback has always been those kind of moments. And I gave the stat the other day about how often he had a sack or an interception, having 12 interceptions last year and only 243 pass attempts is a lot. I mean, that's on pace for like Jameis Winston numbers if you were to have 600 dropbacks in a season. And to throw an interception there, pretty tough, and then have another interceptable ball. And the throw in between was behind, I think it was Josh Oliver. I think it was behind him, or maybe it was Justin Jefferson. But the second throw was really short underneath, but also wasn't on time either. I didn't call it a negative because I thought it was a pass breakup, but still, it didn't look like it was the type of throw he was looking to make. So at the end of the day, I thought JJ McCarthy overall did not have like a terrible practice by any means, but the low moments were very low in that last drill. And I mean, call it without those plays a B+ practice, but with those plays, probably more like a C+ practice. And unfortunately in football, that's kind of what it comes down to, is the best and worst moments. So I wouldn't say, hey, it was a horrible practice. No, it definitely wasn't. For either quarterback, it was kind of your run-of-the-mill type of practice for both guys on the first day of pads. And this is what happens when the pads come on. The defense is always ahead of the offense. There are always miscues. There are always mistakes. And the worst practice of Sam Darnold's entire 2024, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I remember it so well, was his first day in pads. It was atrocious. And I don't remember him completing 3 passes that day. And so I thought both quarterbacks survived it. But had JJ McCarthy had a good situational drill where he had a couple of more completions, gotten the offense moving at all, as opposed to the 2 interceptable balls, I think we would have walked out of that practice being like, oh, okay, at least for now, it's interesting. The rep counts, the fact that they remain fairly similar, where Kyler had gotten quite a bit more on Thursday and Friday, is now something to watch. Is this going to follow the same trend as it did last week, where on the first day, it was pretty much like this. And then on the second day, it leaned a tad toward Kyler. And then on the third day, it was much more Kyler with the first team. And in terms of their total passes, nobody can ever say that someone here didn't get their reasonable opportunity, because they've both thrown a lot of passes. They've both taken a ton of reps so far in this training camp. But I think it shouldn't be like who won this day, who won that day, who won this day, it's really the accumulation of all the reps together. And the ones that happened at the end may stand out in the head coach's mind, who is driven insane by turnovers when you have an not only just an interception, but an interceptable pass before that as well. So those guys weren't the only people on the field today. I'll run you through some other performances and then a couple of Brian Flores quotes, and then we'll get to your questions and comments and thoughts. So noticeable performances. The interior of the defensive line on the first team I thought was really good today. Ty Ingram-Dawkins is just making noise. Like, people are talking. We're all kind of talking about Ty Ingram-Dawkins and the development there from him. I know it's the first day of pads, but it's got my attention. The fact that Brian Flores is using him a lot with the first team. Levi Drake Rodriguez, from my eye, was really good today. And I was trying on all the run plays to focus on those guys, the interior. And Levi Drake has power. And he is starting to remind me of Harrison Phillips. I hope I don't become redundant saying this, because it's just stuck out to me a lot. Like, he's got a body that's a little shorter than Harrison Phillips, but is just wide, like these super wide shoulders and really giant arms, really strong. So LDR with the majority of the first team reps today really stood out, along with when the pads come on for Jalen Redmond, he is a beast. Isaiah Rodgers, 2 pass breakups. Rodgers looks great since he's come back after not participating much in the full team stuff the first couple days. On the offensive side, I implore you, go to my Twitter, go to the Vikings Twitter to see this Ty Felton catch in the back of the end zone. It was a Kyler Murray ball, and it was a little bit high, and he goes up and he grabs it with one hand, pulls it down, toe taps, and falls out of the back of the end zone, but his feet were clearly in. Just an awesome, awesome catch. And I wonder about Ty Felton. We've seen a lot of work for him. They look like they're either trying to develop him a lot or trying to test the waters in whether he can be a guy. Like, we're going to throw a lot at you. You're going to be the number 1 wide receiver for the second team. You're going to get a lot of targets. And by the end of this thing, we'll have a good sense of where you're at. And that was his best moment, although he's been pretty good, I think, so far. Gavin Bartholomew. Oh, I'm sorry. I was asked by Aaron in the comments to name a defensive player of the day. And to not forget, I put it defensive and offensive player of the day in parentheses. So Isaiah Rodgers was my defensive player of the day with a couple of pass breakups. And offensive player of the day was Gavin Bartholomew, who just continues on a daily basis to make plays. Play after play after play. Today, there was one from Kyler Murray, and then there was a touchdown from Carson Wentz. And I'm sorry, Carson, I haven't been tracking your reps, but there was a touchdown from Carson Wentz where it was another good catch from Gavin Bartholomew. And what really stands out to me about Bartholomew is, I talk about this sometimes about how it looks. Does the ball go smoothly into a guy's hands, or does it kind of rattle around in there? Does it look like he's picking it out of the air? Does it look like it's sort of hitting him like a spear? And Bartholomew, he is the former. He is the guy who is controlling the football when it is sent his way. I don't think he's dropped a pass yet. He's been targeted a lot, and you could see right away the athletic ability that he has. So a couple of catches for him today. Also, there was no other player that really jumped out on the offensive side. Jefferson had a couple of catches, but we could just name Jefferson the offensive player of the day every day. And the right side of the offensive line, I don't want to forget any of the big guys here. The Vikings run game today was not special, but the couple of big runs that happened went to the right side. Josh Oliver was over there and involved as well. Brian O'Neill, Will Fries, they were creating some space, whatever receivers were on that side. But the right side of the offensive line on those run plays was able to create a couple of ones that would have been, I don't know if explosive, but they would have been burst type of plays. Okay. Two more things. We have talked about, I have a couple more things, but I forgot to write them in the notes, so I will just read them to you in a minute. But I want to get to Brian Flores. So Brian Flores today, I had a chance to ask him about Chuck Demings because we have talked so much about Chuck Demings, this 5th round pick from Stephen F. Austin. He was out there with the ones again a little bit today, and you're going with James Pierre down. And so you're going, wait a minute, is there something really happening here? Is there a Mr. Mankato starting to make a case on the offensive and defensive side? And Brian Flores did not pour any cold water in that.
Brian, the other day, Charles Demings got a lot of reps out there and seemed pretty confident in himself after when we talked to him after practice. Just what have you made of his adjustment, going from FCS to the way he's come into camp here?
Yeah, Chuck D. He's a very confident individual. High energy, great teammate, hard worker. So in those individual drills, you'll see him working his footwork, hand placement. And then he tries to apply those in the group setting, in the team settings. So he's done a good job so far and just continue to improve on a daily basis. Obviously, we've got some really good receivers, so he gets a lot of good work against, the guys we have on our roster. But he's off to a good start. And I actually just talked to that whole kind of rookie DB group, Tyreek, Marcus Allen, DA. They're all doing a really good job. Had to shout them out a little bit today and just, hopefully they continue to grow, improve, and just take this thing one day at a time.
When a coach like Brian Flores says that a guy is taking what he's doing in individual with his hand placement and transferring it over into the team drills, that's like telling your wife she's beautiful. That is a big compliment. It is a big compliment for a rookie player to have the defensive coordinator say, I see the things that we're teaching you and you're transferring it over. And then the reps match up. And when all these things come together, we start to go, all right, time to pay attention. It's day one of pads. We're not naming him Darrelle Revis yet, but we're paying attention. Okay, the other one from Brian Flores today that stood out to me was, I think it was Andrew Kramer, asked him about the outside linebacker depth and just how he is feeling about that unit at the moment. And he mentioned one particular player.
Ryan, with your edge rusher depth, I'm just curious how you feel about it, understanding that you got guys like Tyrion or Eric Wilson or guys who can kind of jump in those spots. Like, how are you feeling just in general about your options there?
I feel like I like all the guys on our roster. We sit here and talk about Dallas and Gink. I think, we know those two, but, Eric's played on the edge. Golday's played on the edge in the past. Ty's played on the edge. Batty's played on the edge. Bo Richter's having a good camp. Chaz has played, We've got guys, and they're all, hungry to learn, hungry to improve. And so we'll see how that plays out. And, we're always having conversations about everyone on the roster. Feel good about where we're at there. And yeah, I think they're all these next few days will tell us a lot. I would say that.
So two things stand out to me there. Number one is that he shouted out Bo Richter. And if you remember, Bo was the Air Force undrafted free agent that really made his bones in 2024 as a special teamer. And then last year was excellent on special teams as well. So we know that Bo's going to be on this team, but that was the first time we've heard him talked about really as an outside linebacker option, and said that he had a good camp there. And I asked Andrew Van Ginkel after practice about Bo Richter, and he said he reminds me of myself in the hard work that he's putting in, and somebody that is not getting a lot of defensive reps but has the talent and is really pushing for those. And then I had a conversation with Bo after practice too, where he said, like, I'm always going to have the undrafted free agent mentality, but he also talked about adjusting to his size, as not the biggest guy, but he is very athletic and he's very strong. So not having the same sort of length as a Jonathan Grenard, but learning how to pass rush over these last couple of years and putting a lot of work into that. So another guy just to keep an eye on with Bo Richter, and he and Tyler Batty got some first team reps today. Not a ton, but a couple, which catches your eye anytime you see guys like that get any first team reps, filling in there for Van Ginkel and Dallas Turner. And the other notes that I had were just about Caleb Banks. I'm sure you guys want to know about him. Caleb Banks took a couple of reps with the first and second team, but that was it. Didn't see him out there a ton. I think this is going to be a slow ramp up for Caleb Banks. And also with Jake Golday, we asked him about just where he's at right now. And he said, yep, they do want to work him at multiple positions. And the other day, I remember saying, like in the breakdown, yeah, there was a tip pass by Golday and it was intercepted by Blake Cashman. Then I was like, wait, that means he was at outside linebacker with the first team. And he was. And I went back and checked and did have that in the notes that Golday had done some outside linebacker. Didn't see him with the first team today, but did see him at outside linebacker for a couple reps. So Flores talking about they're going to put more and more and more on Golday's plate and then just see where it lands, see where they've hit the maximum capacity for him from an intellectual standpoint, because he's a very, very good athlete. So there you are. Deep breath. There is the breakdown from my end for the first day. So I got some sponsor notes, and then we will get to your questions, comments, thoughts, and feelings. So, if you have quarterback stuff, that's great. But if you have other questions throughout the roster or comments about the roster or whatever else, very interested in getting your thoughts. And then later on, probably like 9:00, Dane Mizutani of the Pioneer Press joined me right after practice, and we got his perspective from today's practice, the quarterback competition, and so forth. So that's going to be in about an hour. So I'll try to get as many of your comments in as I can. But one, I want to give you the FanDuel question of the day, which is Jordan Love's over-under for the Packers, obviously, is 3,550.5 yards on FanDuel. Where do you think the Vikings will rank in passing in the NFC North? That is your FanDuel question of the day. And then I guess you have to decide who you think is going to be the quarterback at that point. And I want to tell you about our sponsor, Brooklyn Bedding. I didn't know that one of my best days of 2026 was going to be when I got a new mattress from Brooklyn Bedding. I could have told you it was going to be the first day of pads for the Vikings, but I did not know that it was going to be one of the best days to get a new mattress. And here's why I'm excited about it. Number one, you could tell right away the craftsmanship is great. It was made right here in the USA, cost effective, but not one of those mattresses that you just find on the side of the road. Exactly. This is high quality craftsmanship right here in the USA, and it feels solid, intentional, built to last. And we switched to the mattress we have is called the Aurora Luxe, and the spine feels great. It's supported. I can really relax after hard work of podcasting. But no, truly, put a lot of energy into the team, and I feel like I need a good night's sleep, and I have gotten that on my mattress. And if you want one, they can do it in any size, even hard to find sizes. We were able to get exactly what we wanted. But if you're a little hesitant, well, you have 120 nights in their comfort trial. If you're not comfortable, you can swap it or return the mattress hassle-free. So go to brooklynbedding.com and use the promo code PURPLE to get 30% for a mattress. Think about 30% off. That's pretty serious for their back-to-school sale. That's brooklynbedding.com. Promo code PURPLE for 30% off site-wide. Also, I want to tell you that when one company like Brooklyn Bedding goes the extra mile and helps you feel like they did everything they could to get you the best mattress, well, it makes you feel wanted, right? And if you're a hiring manager, then you want candidates that really want you and want your job, right? So ZipRecruiter is the best way to find the real candidates who are truly interested in your job. You can try it for free right now at ziprecruiter.com/audio. And what they have is powerful matching technology that finds quality candidates quickly. The candidates can tell you in their own words why they're interested in your job. And that's why ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site. So try ZipRecruiter and meet great candidates who will go the extra step for your job and show that they really want to be with you. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. So try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. That is ziprecruiter.com/audio. Okay, now to your thoughts. And there we go. So let's start off with Chris. Chris says that you live in Spokane, Washington. Wildfires burn down the communities. Wow. And so this is a bit of a reprieve. Well, best to everybody there, man. Thank you for taking the time to listen. That is really, really tough. And when we see all the wildfire smoke over here, I just think of all the people who are dealing with life-changing events in the Pacific Northwest and in Canada, and that's really tough. So thanks for taking the time to listen. Aaron, we did get the players of the day in, so I'll try to continue to do that. I did want to mention that Dominique Orange did not practice today, and neither did Damon Claiborne, so both of those guys were out. And M. Fez, I did not see the one-on-ones with Caleb Banks. Where I was standing watching another part of practice, the one-on-ones were on the other side. I'm going to try to catch some of those, but I also want to get in the right spot for when practice begins, and it kind of happens right before. So I'll do my best to be in all the places at once. Although I will say this when it comes to one-on-ones. They are really interesting to watch, but I cannot claim to you that I know who won unless someone gets like clobbered or what was supposed to be accomplished. Every year I'm reminded by offensive linemen on Twitter, Jeremiah Searles, that they are working on certain things over there with those one-on-ones that they don't come over and announce to the media. And so I've always thought that if you're going to try to give breakdowns on stuff like that, you really risk being out of your depth. So I'm not gonna avoid it because I love to watch and just see the sheer power of these guys and skill, but I can't say, unless he throws somebody, and I can't say always for sure how those one-on-ones are going. Or at least I try to stay in my lane enough to know what I know or whatever. VA Viking, has there been Design Murray runs in camp? Does he look much faster or able than JJ on his feet? I still think folks sleep on JJ's legs. JJ is fast. Kyler Murray is freakishly fast. Murray is next level, crazy quick. It's more quick than long speed. Like, I don't know if they ran 100-yard dash, how that would turn out. And it's not that McCarthy is slow by any means. I think his legs are a big part of what he does. But Murray's one of the top 4 best running quarterbacks since he came into the NFL and was at 570 yards or something in 2024 rushing. So you see the quickness of the feet when he's scampering around. As far as I've seen, designed runs, no, but maybe some stuff that will try to take advantage of the fear of Kyler Murray running. So, I mean, read option type of look sort of thing. I could see them putting in a couple of those plays, but I also don't really believe that we're going to see much design run for Murray. Hadn't seen that much in 2024 when he ran, I believe it was 75 times. There were not a ton of those that were designed runs for Kyler. I think maybe if there's a bootleg or something where they try to get everybody to go one way and he rolls out the other way, something like what you saw from McCarthy, there might be the occasional type of play, but I don't think you want to really run Kyler into a bunch of bodies like you would with a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson or what Cam Newton did, where they were totally fine with that. I don't know if we're going to see a lot of it with Murray, but there might be some options where he could, if he sees the right look, he could just pull the ball and run. Probably stuff a little bit more along those lines. M. Fez, what is your prediction on how many rookie role players there will be this season based on what you've seen so far? Up to your interpretation, what quantifies a role player? Okay, so if we go through the class, I would assume that Caleb Banks is going to be a starter, but Jake Golday would be one that I think is going to be a role player. At this moment, I'm going Dominique Orange as a role player because it looks to me, and this is through, one padded practice, like if they were to start a game today, it would be Levi Drake Rodriguez playing nose tackle and Dominique Orange potentially mixing in. So there's two. Max Bredesen, no question, is going to have a role. Charles Demings, if he's the next man up for an injury to James Pierre, then I would say he's going to have a role right there. After that, can we count Gavin Bartholomew, who is running away with tight end 3 as a rookie since he didn't get to play last year? So I guess that's 4? Is there another one that I'm missing? Another rookie that I'm missing? I don't see Jacoby Thomas right now being in the mix to start or even have a rotational role at this moment. I think with Jacoby Thomas, they're going to develop him and have him ready as depth. At least that's the way it looks, that it's going to be Theo Jackson and Josh Metellus and Jay Ward, the guys who have developed. And think about how long it took Jay Ward to get on the field. So I might say at this moment, probably 4. Oh, Caleb Tiernan was the other draft pick. Swing tackle's not a role. But if someone gets hurt, then it will be. But I think even Ryan Vandemark would play if one person went down. He would probably play before Caleb Tiernan. So I'm going to go with 4, and then the door is open for anybody on special teams. I mean, that's up to anybody who could make an impact on special teams and win a job. But, I was talking, I'll give you a little preview of my conversation with Dane Mizutani. I said to Dane at some point, we were talking about all these different positions, and I said to Dane, are they young right now? Is this a young football team? Because there actually are a lot of veterans, of course, that are in their primes or late primes, and we know that. But in terms of the role player world or the improving guy world, this team has gotten quite a bit younger with this draft class. And the other one I didn't mention was Damon Claiborne. And as of this moment, I've got Xavier Scott as RB3 until Claiborne can prove it. And since he didn't practice today, we didn't see him or Saturday. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens with him. But a 6th round draft pick is going to have to show me a little bit first. I know that people want to declare him kind of the next, you don't want to say Jahmyr Gibbs. Maybe he's got that kind of quickness, but Gibbs was a 1st round draft pick. But even like a Michael Bennett or a David Palmer, somebody like that, a Jerick McKinnon, you got to show that you can be that first. Xavier Scott has actually played in some games. He is quite a bit older than Claiborne, so I think we're going to have to be a little more patient on that one. Good question. Let's see. Bland Toast? How has McCarthy looked this year compared to last year? I do not know the technical stuff, okay? I am too far away, and I don't know as much as Kevin O'Connell, and I don't know as much as Josh McCown. So I cannot tell you if he is throwing the football different. He does not look like he's doing crazy climbs in the pocket like he did at times. He does not look like he's doing the leg whip thing, but I don't know if those tell us anything or not. There have not been a ton of layered passes or beautiful floating balls. I think he's always going to be a fastball thrower. His accuracy has been good and bad. The decision-making has been good and bad, which is what happened last year a lot to this point in training camp. And then I thought as it went on, McCarthy had a very tough night practice, but then kind of got ramped up, was fine in the preseason game, finished off camp pretty well. But to this point, I cannot say that there is some significant difference through 5 practices where I am saying, wow, the kid's really getting it, or even to any degree of that. I mean, today was such a good example of last year, we would have said about JJ McCarthy, oh man, well, that was, it was a pretty good practice, but it ends on a tough way, but hey, he's still learning, no big deal. We have to look at it a little bit differently now. We have to look at it a little harsher now since he's in the middle of a quarterback competition and he isn't a pseudo rookie anymore. He's in year 3 of his career, and having 2 interceptable passes in a situational drill is pretty tough. It's not the end of the world. It's one practice, and we'll see how this plays out. But can I tell a significant difference? I can't. There's still a lot of good plays, but they're kind of the same plays as they were last year. So just to give you examples, like throwing to the boundary where you just, jack up and throw it really hard to the boundary, is something he did well last year. He still completed a lot of passes and had a fair number of highlights throwing a ball down the seam. I remember against Dallas, he had a great one to TJ Hawkinson. It was like, woof, let it rip. Those are the main top passes that he's thrown. And then the mistakes have still been there for McCarthy to this point. It's 5 practices. It's probably a total of, 60 throws in practice at all so far for him. But I can't say that I feel differently to this point. And maybe when Kevin O'Connell talks or Wes Phillips, they'll point something out to us that's different. I can't tell. Maybe the command of the offense is different, but again, it's hard for me to be able to put my finger on something specific that I could say was significantly different than last year. Mama, doesn't the defense usually dominate the first day of padded practice? I remember the same thing happened last year and every year, Mama, every single year. Truly, I'm not joking. Every single year, the defense is better than the offense on the first day of pads. And that's probably because I ran into my friend Chris Long headed out and he said that's because they've been dying to hit somebody. Yeah, that's probably right. Like they've just been frothing at the mouth, but also, the details of an offense versus a defense where almost every player has been in it except for Chuck Demings. I mean, truly every player has been in this defense where you have a quarterback in Kyler Murray who's learning it. And you have a younger quarterback in JJ McCarthy. So that could play into it too, but 100% around the NFL. I follow beat reporters from almost every team and I see it all the time. Well, the defense dominated today, the first day in pads. So yes, it is a very, very common thing. Good to meet you. I don't know. What is a Gunja? Is that what your name is? But it was great to meet you at practice today. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate that. Yep, you're right, Drew. The defense almost always wins the beginning of camp. And usually these first couple of days, by the third day, maybe the offense gets going. But the first day, my recap of Sam Darnold last year, it was just, what did we watch? And then it got much better. Daver, this camp is going to be more about Kyler elevating his game to the level people thought he could versus JJ being bad. So far, this camp has been about how long is the competition going to go on? And for Kyler Murray, we're just too early in it to be able to really say what he looks like in this offense. It was outstanding on Saturday, but we all figured, and I probably mentioned it the other day, first day of pads going to be a little bit tougher. And by the end of it, though, Daver, I hope to have a feeling on what you're talking about. I hope to have a sense myself going into the season, and it's a thing I always try to kind of put on record. How do I feel about the team coming out of the camp? So I'll remember it. We can review them all from the past. But I hope to have a feeling of, assuming that Kyler ends up ultimately winning the job, which at this moment, still up in the air. But if he does win the job, then I hope to have at least a guess at whether his game is going to be elevated or whether it's going to be a lot of the same old problems. Because on Saturday, he made a lot of throws to Justin Jefferson. I think it was 5 completions to Jefferson, and they were on time, and the 2 were on point, where I was saying, yes, Kyler Murray has not had a receiver like this for a long time, and he is liking it. And then today, when you see, a throw kind of flutters over the middle and it's a little too high for Jordan Addison, and it's maybe the throw that, people have critiqued him on or that he hasn't had as much success throwing, you go, yeah, that's a tough one for Kyler Murray. Is he really going to be a different quarterback? And the answer is, of course, no. He's not going to be a different Kyler Murray. And what we've seen so far is that there are flaws in his game. He really can throw the football. He can play on time. He has played pretty much exclusively from the pocket. I think of maybe one throw where he rolled out and threw the ball in this entire camp so far. It has been from the pocket. And so you can see all the good things that he does there, but you can also see that there are limitations sometimes, and you can see that there's a learning process. I think if he were to get another shot at that, he would hang on a little longer and read that corner, or he would get rid of the ball a little quicker and, bring it down a little bit, but you don't get, 5 chances at it. It's like golf. You don't get 5, shots off the tee. I mean, sometimes you do if 4 of them go in the woods, but that's not how quarterbacking works, unfortunately. So, I look to see some of the things that I saw on tape from him with the Cardinals being a little bit better with this team just because of the offense and the people around him. But I also don't think that it's going to totally change like Kyler as a quarterback, and he's not going to suddenly become Lamar Jackson at 5'9.5". Nick, any truth to the both quarterbacks looking like booty in the 2-minute drills? Yes, both quarterbacks did not look very good in the 2-minute drills, but to their credit, they only got 3 passes each because they went 3 and out. So O'Connell was not forgiving when it came to those drills. The defense was really good in one of the plays getting after Kyler, and the others were just the quarterbacks not doing their job. I mean, it was Murray not being on the same page with a wide receiver. It was McCarthy throwing either late or behind. Hard to say which exactly, but I do know that Isaiah Rodgers got both hands on it and then threw right to Byron Murphy Jr. It was not good, like for sure, the situational drill, and that's got to be better. And also, like, you could have got more reps if that had happened. Yeah, that's a new one. That's a new one. I didn't expect to see if Trent Dilfer can win the Super Bowl than JJ McCarthy can, but I think that one of the concerning things to you with that comment as it came off of your fingers, like, did you think about, like, Trent Dilfer was drafted around the same range as JJ McCarthy and turned out to be a quarterback for a long time in the league that never really stuck and never really got to be more accurate. And so he kind of bounced around and he could win some games for somebody, but it took a actual miracle for him to win a Super Bowl with maybe the greatest defense in history. Like, does that kind of click there or not really? Ryu, if the Vikings start out good for the first 4 weeks, do you think we should be all in on this team for the trade deadline, considering most of the roster is ready? It's been a pretty wide open NFL too. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be 4 weeks. Luckily for us and the content, the NFL has moved the trade deadline back from where it used to be. Let me just take a quick look. Let me do a quick Google search. What is the NFL trade deadline? Oh, thank you so much, Demad. Really appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. That is really great of you. As I always say, not required, but much appreciated. So the trade deadline is, oh my gosh, they have moved it back again. It is after week 10, November 10th, 2026. Holy cow. So teams have forever to figure out if they're any good. And I definitely think if the Vikings in week 10, they'll have played 9 games. If they're 7-2, then yeah, they're going to be in. They're going to be making some moves. But when it comes to a 500 type record, then probably not. But that is really a plus for Nolan Teasley. I mean, back in the day, it'd be week 6 and you had to decide very quickly, like, are you in or are you out? But now with this team, they can wait and see it play out. And let's say that they are 7-2 and it's gone really well. They've won. That means they've won some NFC North games. That means they've probably won some tough battles. And ooh, what is the game in week 9? That is Vikings and Bills on national TV. Can you imagine, folks, if the Minnesota Vikings were 6-2 going into that game and beat the Bills and went into the trade deadline thinking, oh my gosh, we need to add to this Super Bowl caliber roster. I could see it. I don't know if they're going to quite be 7-2, but I think that would be the minimum for me. Would probably be, I don't even know if 6-3 does it for me. 6-3 is still like you're a good team, and maybe you add something with a 4th round draft pick like Seattle did with Rashid Shaheed. But in terms of like a big splash move, I would not be thinking that unless they are 7-2 or better. Enemy Cap, who else saw the Ty Felton clip? I don't want to overreact, but 3 deep. See, you guys were all out calling poor Ty a bust and all that last year. And now look at him. He is Odell Beckham Felton. No, it's a great catch. And I mean, Ty's made a lot of catches in these first few days. It has not blown me away exactly until this catch that was incredible. And there's been a few where I thought, oh man, maybe Ty has to undercut that route a little more, or maybe like get out of that turn a little bit tighter. But I think you could see the work that's been put in by Ty Felton to be ready for this season and for an opportunity to carve out some role. And as this goes along, the twos are getting a lot of reps. He's the top guy on the twos. And I've been fairly encouraged so far by what we've seen. And I think it's the same thing that we see from KJ Osborne, from Jalen Naylor. And, you know, there's only been so many questions we've been able to ask Kevin O'Connell so far. I would like him to do an interview after every single practice to be like, so here's what I thought, Kev. Can you tell me if this was right? Like, but unfortunately, we can't throw that many questions at him because he has to coach the football team. But I mean, I'd love to ask, and I'll try at some point about, you know, Felton's development and if he's starting to reach the point where they're intrigued with him, because last year he did a good job on special teams. And normally if you do a good job on special teams, no one really cares except for the people in the building who go, hey, that's real football, man. You're beating corners. You're getting down there and making plays. You know, Jimmy Smith, the great Jimmy Smith, started out as a special teamer. So you never know. Oh, Adam Thielen too. But no, I mean, I think Felton's got the talent and we're just starting to see the development. And maybe in an ideal world, he's wide receiver 3 to start next year. But don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. You've got my attention. I want to see how this plays out. And the catch is really worth it. Go find it. The Vikings are going to put it everywhere. Mike, everything I've seen indicates little or no improvement from McCarthy, slow processing, bad decision-making, errant throws, poor command of the offense. Wentz is better, so I would trade him to move the guaranteed money. At this moment, I have seen the good things from JJ McCarthy that I saw last year that I came out of camp probably focusing a little too much on, or maybe you just can't predict football. I'm not sure, but we've seen a lot of good things from McCarthy, and we have seen the things that you just described too often with a tough practice on Saturday, too often with a tough ending. I mean, if you think about the last 2 practices, what did I have him at the other day? 4 negatives and then 4 negatives again today. It's like, it's just too many negative plays. It's too many misses and maybe bad decisions, as you're talking about, or slow processing at the beginning of camp. Now, could this turn? I mean, he's getting the opportunities. So they must not be through 5 days so sickened by McCarthy's performance that they're going to name Kyler the starter tomorrow or something. And today it was fairly even on the reps with the first team, and McCarthy ended up getting 2 more throws, at least from what I wrote down, with the first team. So, I mean, he's still in that conversation. And as long as that's still going on, we're going to give the leeway and the room for him to string some practices together. But after the way this one ended, I mean, it has to start pretty soon because today, you know, he comes out, goes 3 for 3, hits a great pass. And, you know, I said to Dane Mizutani, I was like, how many views do you think the YouTube video would get if I just put like JJ McCarthy bounces back? Because, you know, clearly has a large fan base. So I was ready to talk about that. And I was even ready to talk about it to some extent, even though there were a few other throws that weren't that great, but like, okay, you know, bounce back practice. And then when you have 3 straight, I didn't count the second one as a negative, but it could have been. And then 2 others that are as negative of plays as it can get from the quarterback position. That's what made it finish off as a very tough day. Edwin, did the offense show anything interesting to you in the run game today? Not really. And one of the reasons is it's, you know, the base stuff at the very beginning. So we're seeing outside zone type of plays and not like, whoa, look how exotic this is. In fact, I doubt that we will ever see that. We're there in practice and we're allowed to report on practice and fans are filming all of practice. They're not going to bring out Frank Smith's best stuff when Joe, you know, whatever, with 47 followers on Twitter is videoing it for the Chicago Bears to watch. So like, it's just not going to happen. And when they do get to that stuff, it'll probably be in the 2 weeks where it's closed, or they'll start to layer it in after the fans are gone for practice, and where, we're not supposed to report on as kind of part of the agreement with the pro football writers and the teams and all that sort of stuff. And it makes sense, like scheme stuff. It wouldn't be a very good idea to have, reporters watching practice and be like, oh, this is the exact scheme they're running with the exact wrinkles and everything else. You need to maintain your competitive advantage there. So I try to go, broad strokes when I talk to you guys about this type of scheme stuff, but I don't think that for myself, I would be able to watch from where I'm watching and say, oh, that's a wrinkle of now the center takes this guy. And now that, right, it would have to be pretty extreme. So what I'm really looking for, getting to the point, is how connected they are. That's what we're looking for. Does it look like the offensive line is moving as one unit? Does it look like the running back and the offensive line are on a string and they're connected? And today there were 2 or 3 runs where I would say the answer was yes. And then there were a good amount of other ones where it's like, do you view it as a positive that the interior D-line looked like they did really well? Do you view it as a positive if Dallas Turner set an edge? Or do you view it as a negative that they didn't get a big gain on a particular run? So it's a little, it's a little back and forth. Gunja, Felton struggled a little bit in practice today. Jennings, Addison, and Jefferson all look the way they should. You must have been taking a closer look at Felton and some of his particular routes than I was. The catch is going to really stand out. And a lot of times it's hard to watch 4 or 5 wide receivers, right? When we're all kind of looking about where is the football going to go. So that's where, we try to look at the one-on-ones, but I think somebody like Ty Felton will have to also show in preseason that he could be trusted. I just think that he's been targeted quite a bit so far from both of the quarterbacks, and he's got an opportunity here. But your assessment, maybe you were watching a lot closer with him on his particular plays. Steven, it's early, but does it seem like Charles Demings is in the lead for Mr. Mankato? Him and Gavin Bartholomew, to me, would be the favorites right now. Bartholomew every single day is popping, and Demings, even though it's because James Pierre was out getting those top reps, but somebody who has, never played in this system before, has not been on the team before, and then jumping in and taking those reps. It wasn't a million today, but it was a handful with the first team, and it was a handful on Saturday, and it seems like Brian Flores is very happy with him. So if Demings, he checks off a lot of boxes for a Mr. Mankato. He's a 5th round draft pick. He's a really good athlete. He comes from a small school, which always kind of helps the story. He's a great talker. Clearly, from what Byron Murphy said today, really they're enjoying him and his personality inside of the room, and his work ethic is great. So he's got this fan favorite element to him. He's got to make a couple plays in preseason games. If he gets 2 picks in preseason, he is Mr. friggin' Mankato, right? He's going to lock that up pretty fast. Jay said, what was the best thing about training camp in pads today? It was probably just that it was happening. It's so hard to watch practices that aren't in pads because you're always wondering, is this actually something that would have happened or not? There were a couple of sacks. There was one sack that JJ McCarthy took where the second team D-line I think it was a blitz. Jake Golday was rushing and they just got to him almost instantly. So seeing the violence kind of start out and really the players playing at full speed, not 80% speed and trying not to get hurt, but really much closer to full speed was the best thing to watch, where we could actually say, you know what, Levi Drake Rodriguez looked really good to me today against the run. Or, hey, Jalen Redmond, man, put pads on that guy and he turns into a monster. That sort of stuff, real pass rush reps and moves. That's the good stuff, man. That's the good stuff. Mr. Mayor, what's the deal with Pierre? Is he injured? Don't want to see this year's hand-picked Flores guy missing time. Yeah, it's not going to be much time. Flores told us today that it's not something that's serious, and he did take part in the warm-ups and the individual stuff. So that's a good sign that it's not that serious. Autumn Village fans should note that quarterbacks aren't likely to run in practice when nothing is open. They're forcing it sometimes purposefully. No, that's definitely true. There's kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4. If you've exhausted all of your reads, then maybe you scramble because you are trying to practice the clock in your head. So they do scramble sometimes, and we've seen Darnold and JJ take off in the past, and we will with both of these guys. But you're right, they shouldn't be. I mean, if you're running too much, then you're going to start asking questions because all the plays in practice are designed for you to throw the ball. Steven, yeah, you're right that Pierre was warming up, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be something too serious. Flick, it sounds like this year's draft class has a chance to not only be good, but great. Don't remember the last time a class sounded so optimistic top to bottom. I mean, I agree. Like when the draft was over, there were a lot of mediocre grades, but I think that the grades coming out of the draft were largely focused on the fact that a lot of people didn't have Caleb Banks as a first round draft pick. And a lot of people did not have him as a first round draft pick because of the foot. And not to relitigate the entire thing, but when I looked back on grinding the mocks, he was the 23rd ranked prospect before the combine. Then he got hurt. And then I think a lot of people just went, oh, I don't know, red flags, and dropped him farther. So he was drafted in the relative range that he was expected going into training camp. But that doesn't get you a whole heck of a lot of good A pluses in the draft analysis world. And neither does taking a guy from Stephen F. Austin, and neither does taking a versatile outside linebacker who looks like a perfect fit for Brian Flores. But when draft grades are done, they're kind of done in a bubble. They're not done with total context with the team and with the coach and everything else. But if we go, kind of pick by pick, there's somewhere I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go that far. Like with Damon Claiborne, we'll see on Damon Claiborne. But someone like Golday, that's a second round draft pick and already clicking pretty well with the defense, already catching the eye of the defensive coordinator and having the defensive coordinator say, yeah, we're actually trying to put more and more and more on this guy's plate to just see how much he can retain. And then every day we'll, keep pushing the limits. I think that's a pretty good review. And he's just a really unique athlete. He's very, very tall, but has strength to him and moves extremely well. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of these draft picks who are starting to emerge in certain roles that, yeah, we haven't seen in a while, mostly because they traded all their draft picks. I was saying that to Kevin Seifert as we were walking to the field today. I said, it's been a while since I had a draft class to really discuss. Like, when was the last one? You are certainly right, Gunja, that Max Bredesen, it looks exactly like a fullback. No doubt about that. It's just this rookie class. I mean, I do think it has an actual chance to be pretty effective. Axton, could Bartholomew be the eventual replacement for Hawkinson? That I am not willing to go so far, but I will say this, when it comes to the tight end position, a lot of times, the first round draft picks, obviously, are going to get the most opportunity, the most development, everything else. I mean, they're going to get all the chances in the world. And like Kyle Pitts, it took a couple years, or TJ Hawkinson, a couple years. But sometimes they are a guy with just a natural catching ability who's a 6th round pick or something. Tyler Conklin was a good tight end here for that. I mean, if you're judging with some draft class baked in, like where were you picked, you'd probably say maybe he could be a rotational guy at some point, and you don't want to go crazy after 5 days of practice. But I will say it's been impressive. Johnny heard Bredesen was on the side field with a blocking sled. Maybe he needs work there, or maybe he's Max Bredesen. He's just going to be blocking all the time. These guys, I love how you put it as if you were like Adam Schefter. You were like, I heard he was blocking a sled. They do that. Yeah, they do that. They all do in some way like individual stuff where you'll see pass rushers line up against the dummies after practice and be like, whoa, and do some sort of, there's a lot going on there. They'll do swim moves and different moves and stuff like that. I mean, it happens all the time. But Bredesen, I think, is going to be part of this. The way that they've set it up, he's been out there quite a bit. AP Carlin isn't the defense usually ahead of the offense, and is that why Murray struggled? I would not really call it struggle today. I would just say that there were moments that he was on point and there were moments that he wasn't, and nothing was too catastrophic. Yeah, there was the one high throw to Jordan Addison, and people love saying hospital ball, even though you can't just lay out wide receivers when they're jumping for footballs anymore. But still, like, it's not a good throw. It's a negative play. No question about that. But I wouldn't say struggled. What did I have him at the completion percentage? Whoops. Hold on. That's not what I wanted to look at. What did I have him at? I mean, he completed 10 of 14, 2 negatives, 2 positives. So I'm not sure I would go struggle. I wouldn't go struggle with either quarterback. I would say that their negative plays were pretty clear and their positive plays were maybe not as high as some of the ones that were earlier in camp. Nick was Pierre practicing today. James Pierre was doing warm-ups, but was not in 11 on 11s. Yep. And is the faithful, you're right. The offense is going up against a really good defense, a really good defensive mind. You know, that's how it goes. Yeah, I saw Claiborne also warm up a little bit, but he didn't do anything today in 11 on 11s. Rach personally feel like McCarthy has shown significant improvement to justify. You do feel like that to justify a full-time position? Oh, he hasn't. Okay. I get it. Okay. I shouldn't have reacted to half of your comment that he has to have. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. You mean he needed to show that he's shown clear improvement and he hasn't so far. We're only 5 days in and they probably want to get a bigger sample before they say that definitively. That is my feeling right now. I feel like if McCarthy was hitting everything and just looked super on point and we were marking down 0 negative plays and 5 positives and 90% completion percentage, then we'd be saying, okay, wow, this is rolling right now with JJ McCarthy. And it's been, as we were talking about earlier, it's been very similar. And last year I came in here and broke down every practice, not as scientifically, but I broke down every practice and I'd go over the best and the worst. Kind of feels the same, where today felt like a 2025 practice. Only in this case, I would have said, yeah, dude, this is the stuff you got to work on and it's early in practice, so we got to give him time. But that's not something we're saying as much now with back-to-back practices that have had catastrophic mistakes by JJ McCarthy, even if it's also had some very good moments as well. Yeah, Steven, in terms of the progression element, it's another hard thing to look at and say, oh, I know where he was supposed to progress. I definitely don't, but I do have a clock in my head, and all of us do, and you do too. Anyone who's there at practice, when you watch someone drop back, you have kind of an expectation. I watch Carson Wentz is like really good at this. You watch Carson, he was in the red zone today. It's like 1, 2, 3, bang, ball out. And you know what? It might not be the most accurate ball you've ever seen, but it's coming out of there. And with McCarthy, it's similar to last year at the beginning of training camp. And there really isn't that much time to have a big ramp up to where we were largely convinced when people talk about where we all stood at the end of training camp last year, which was, like he's made a lot of progress and this should be pretty good. That was a lot based on the joint practices and then the end going into week 1, which was pretty solid. I mean, I remember his last practice, he went something like, 23 for 26 or whatever. It was good. This is not a scenario where he's going to have the whole summer to ramp up and then emerge at the end of practice. Like, it's got to start being more consistent and better. And the fact that it's not 5 practices in is sort of it's hard to make ginormous gains in a short period of time from the time you finish up the last season to the beginning of the next training camp. It's not a lifetime. So there may be gains that I'm not necessarily seeing. But there might also be, things with these mistakes that are still plaguing him that did last year. No, Big Citrus was not out there today. He was kind of in street clothes, but he was carrying off everyone's pads. And that was funny because he had like 3 guys or 4 guys' pads and was dropping them. So East Minnesota, Mark, our defense is dominating and confusing the offense. Kyler will only get better. trying to mastermind the schemes. Yeah, I mean, like, this happened to Darnold as well. Kirk was legitimately frustrated. Like, there's a press conference or two where it's like, so Kirk, what do you see in this Flores defense? And he kind of gave that, yeah, they gritted teeth kind of, they got a lot of different looks there. Like, it's only the third day of practice and you're already throwing a lot at me. So yeah, they do that all the time. And really, this was an excellent play from Isaiah Rodgers. I mean, I think if anything from Rodgers, he identified what the concept was and broke off, or it was that they changed the picture, which happens a lot. So by change the picture, I mean, they start off in a certain look. Say it's like a single high safety look. And then the quarterback runs a play action. He turns around and they're in two high safeties, which is may have what happened on this one. And then, you get rid of the ball and you kind of had a read in mind and it changed, which a lot of NFL teams are doing. That's not unique totally, but it is one of those, yeah, these guys get what they're supposed to be doing here. Maverick, time to give Murray QB1, stop the pretense and give him the reps. I'm getting there. When you look at the schedule and how it plays out, you have 2 more practices this week, and then you go into the weekend, and I think that's, the night practice coming up, I want to say on Sunday evening. So, if it keeps going this way, then maybe you lean a little bit harder into Kyler Murray. I'm curious about the next 2 days, because last week, the first day was pretty slow. There weren't that many passes, and they were taking very even reps. And then as the 2 days went on, it was a little more day 2, a little more day 3 toward Kyler. So I'm curious if it goes the same way this time. And if we get into the next phase of it, because this is still the beginnings of the offense. This is not as much the hardcore, you guys should know everything. I'm going to throw random calls at you throughout practice and you got to know them and go. We're not quite there yet. That usually tends to happen after the night practice when we start to get into closer to the preseason and the joint practices. That's where O'Connell turns up the heat and really wants hard practices, really wants the players to know it inside and out, locked in as you get to midway through August. So we are still a little bit early there, and maybe they want to do more assessing of some of the stuff I just described into the next couple of days. But from what we've seen so far, it's not that Kyler has run away with this. It's just that McCarthy has not shown to this point so much that I would say, oh yeah, man, he's got a chance to be totally different. BM, so Kyler was still mid and JJ a step behind him at the end of the week. If this trend continues, call the competition and move on. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. I would not say overall that Kyler has been mid. I mean, he's had 3, what is this? How many practices? This is four competitive practices, and 3 of them have been fine. Today was fine. It wasn't a catastrophe. It wasn't great. And one of them was absolutely awesome. That's how it's gone so far. There was one where he made mistakes, but he also had big throws. We went over that the other day. That was day 2. Where he had 5 positive throws, but also too many mistakes. So they've all kind of been okay. Whereas, McCarthy with a tough end to his practice today, a tough practice on Saturday, it's just been a little bit more of the same with him. I am not in disagreement with you necessarily. I mean, my view has always been that it's better for JJ to get as many reps as he can and develop as much as he can. But Kyler Murray was brought here to be the starting quarterback. So Kyler Murray will very likely be the starting quarterback unless something really changes. I am not to the point where I'm criticizing O'Connell, though, for the way he's handling this. I think that during the implementation of the offense portion, which is kind of this early part, giving both of them a lot of reps is fine with me. But it's got to turn at some point, and I don't need it to turn right now, but I definitely need it to turn within like a month of the season. The season starts on what, like September 13th. Like, I want Kyler Murray, and remember where we are in the schedule, that it doesn't start. I think it's September. Is that the right date? September 13th or somewhere in that range. It's almost mid-September when the season starts. So you will have time to get ramped up. It's just once we get past like this week and into next week, and if it's still going the exact same way and there isn't anything that's really changed, then yeah, it'll be time to name Kyler the starter and move on. Contrapast and how many would-be sacks plays were there? I think it was just maybe one for each guy. There was one where Kyler rolled out at the end and threw the ball away. So I don't know if it would have been a sack because it's Kyler Murray. And there was one that was definitely a sack for J.J. McCarthy that he didn't even throw the ball. It happened so quickly. It wasn't his fault. I mean, they just got bowled over, and that would have been a sack that was entirely on the blocking and on Brian Flores. So neither guy was having so many problems with sacks today. That wasn't a huge issue. Steven, I know that Ingram Dawkins has shown a little something on the edge, but I'm still of the opinion that we should sign a veteran edge. I am too. Yep, I am too, because I think Ingram Dawkins, along with Richter and Batty, like all these guys, I think have something to really like about them, but they're not of the quick twitch variety. They're not of the Jonathan Grenard type of Dallas Turner ilk. They are much more of Van Ginkel types where it's, oh, this guy plays 3 different positions and we could put him over there. Eric Wilson, you could throw him over there and then rush 4 on the other side, and maybe he hangs out in coverage or maybe he blitzes and it's like some sort of confusing. Like there's a lot of guys who could do that, but not be an edge rusher. And that's where you'd like to see them get someone else, because I don't know that there's anyone even on the roster that can do that, but it sounded like Flores wants to kind of stay patient. Purple Kool-Aid, LDR looking like Phillips. Does that mean we're about to flip a 6th and miss his skill set all last season? Purple Kool-Aid, there were a list of regrettable things from last year. And number 1, I think we all know, but number 2 might be that one. And at the time I understood it. At the time I was like, oh, okay. And I'd be curious. I'm always curious to like go back every once in a while. My own podcast pop up in my YouTube algorithm and I'll just click on like, what was I talking about for this podcast to pop up? And when they did that with Phillips, my thought was, well, they love Jalen Redmond and they love Levi Drake Rodriguez. So, and they want Elijah Williams on this team. So I get it. Like they think that LDR is kind of going to be the Harrison Phillips type, and they signed these 2 defensive tackles. And remember, they were not really playing more of the pure 3-4. They were kind of a hybrid type thing. So it's like, well, most of the time, 2 defensive tackles are on the field anyway. So, yada, yada, yada. But they needed Phillips. Yeah, he would have been a big help for sure. Maybe they win a game. Forrest, biggest McCarthy guy, 100% fine with Kyler starting. Hate the idiotic division thing, within the fan base. Totally fair. It's frustrating for me as well, because when you're trying to, break it down and everything in a reasonable way and talk about it rationally, not everyone wants to do that. But, what I've noticed here from this comment section is you guys have been great. There's always a few, kind of goofballs who show up, but 90% of the comments, like I'm having trouble keeping up with them because they're good. And they're scrolling by me so fast. So, but to your point, I think after today and Saturday, it's certainly not over for JJ McCarthy as long as he's still getting this many reps. It's definitely not over for him. But I would say that the best outcome for JJ McCarthy may be just continuing to develop. It looks that way. It looks like there's just more time needed. Mike, you signed Rodgers to an extension before the season. I like Isaiah Rodgers quite a bit as a starting corner. Just kind of depends on the price. I also, I wonder about, extensions for a couple guys on the team. Like, would they add another year potentially to Van Ginkel to keep him around? I don't know. Like, there's a number of players that Blake Cashman is one of them that you could see them adding, to his contract. This is where you have a new general manager who's just starting to assess these things. But Isaiah Rodgers is, I think he's age-wise like 28, but he's a spry 28. BM, you don't believe McCarthy will ever be good. Not rooting against him and hope you're wrong, but it's clear it's a big step down from Kyler. Yeah, I think that it's really just that McCarthy is so far behind in the amount of football that he's played from Kyler, and also has to make up that the natural gifts are not there in the same way. And they're not the same way as even Sam Darnold either. Like the draft status, it does tell a story that a lot of people had McCarthy as a mid-first round pick type of talent, and he was taken 10th, and he was not the most accurate college passer. He needed a lot of technical throwing, and it still looks like more time is needed. I don't like to count people out, though, because there's enough quarterbacks who have had it work eventually, but usually it takes a little while. Usually it's not like poof, just, goes away for summer camp and then comes back and is a different player. Walter, how's Carson Wentz looking? He's only had a couple of reps, but he's been fine. I mean, he's Carson Wentz. Like, he looks like he can make some plays. He has a big arm, and he's comfortable with what he's being asked to do. He's getting the younger guys some work, and those younger guys should be thrilled because they're working with Carson Wentz on the third team. So they should be very happy. But just to, put a bow on the McCarthy comment, it's just that from these first 5 days, it's very hard to say, wow, it just completely changed, which doesn't mean that his career has to be over, or it doesn't mean that they should call the quarterback competition as of today, but it does mean that more work needs to be done from him in this camp, like fast. There's not too much time after this, I think. Once the pads come on, like, it needs to happen. If it's going to click, it needs to click soon. That's the way I would put it after today. If it's going to click, it's got to start clicking pretty fast. Like, it's got to start going in these next couple of days. So there's a lot of, I think, urgency should be felt by JJ McCarthy. That would be after today how I would view it. There's a lot of urgency, and the mistakes like today they can't really happen, because that's what's been happening over, since he's been here. Mike, Flores is a bad liar. You could tell he's begging for some edge depth behind the scenes. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think he knows that he's got a lot of players that you could do certain things with, but he also could really use somebody who's just a pure rusher I think we all know that. Gerard, McCarthy's main issue now is what seems to be like under pressure, something you'd only learn by being put into the fire. I don't think that it's actually under pressure. I really think that it's that his consistency from a play-to-play basis is just not there yet. And, if you want a golf analogy or something, what is golf all about? It's all about consistency. It's about fairways and greens and making your putts and all those things. And with McCarthy, if you hit, a good number of fairways and you hit a good number of greens, but not all of them, and you shoot 10 over, like, you're still a really good golfer. If you play in a pro tournament and you shoot 10 over, oh my God, you're better than every person that I have ever met. But the best in the world shoot 10 under, right? And that's kind of where he's at right now, and he needs to close the gap. Axton, Jacoby Thomas and Jacob Thomas have been playing together. I don't know if that's like a thing that they're doing on purpose, but I've noticed him out there. I can't say that there was a specific play that really caught my eye just yet. I shot you 99. When does Banks be a full go? It's going to be a while. Like, they're going to work him in. It's going to be a couple reps today, a couple reps tomorrow, a couple reps after that. And I kind of have, a couple of dates, circled of when I think would make sense for him, kind of like night practice. You'd like to see him like around that point start to get more reps. And I don't know if they'll actually be in the night practice because they're doing it on that turf, if that's not something they want for him to do. But around that area, around the preseason, how much does he get going into the preseason? Kit, the snapping issues have been okay over the last couple days. No big issues over the last couple days for Blake Brandel. But, you get into the preseason, and then let's see Banks go 2 series in the preseason, then almost every rep after that, and kind of go from there. but it's going to be slow. I mean, with Caleb Banks, the thing is that he's such an interesting player and he's such a talented player that we are going to talk about him a lot. But I you're going to have to kind of preach that like patience of, the first game he might play 15 plays. And then by the fifth game, maybe it's up to 30 or something like that, because we are talking about a guy that hasn't played a lot of football. Caleb, how about bringing in Hassan Reddick? I'm in favor of Reddick, Leonard Floyd, Vaughn Miller, any of those guys. Of course, they have to want to come to your team, and maybe they're looking for bigger roles than the Vikings could give them right now. Maybe it's a end of camp type of thing. I mean, if you are one of those guys and you're in your 30s and you have a family and, do you really want to move to a new city if you don't have to for a couple more weeks? And we've seen that with Carson Wentz, and we've seen that with Stephon Gilmore. I kind of suspect it's the same type of thing. Yes, Axton, please, folks, hit the like and subscribe if you can. That would be wonderful, because we're closing in on 16,000 subscribers. Steven says Reddick is washed. Yeah, he didn't look great last year. I thought Floyd was better. Leonard Floyd would probably be my choice, personally. BM for the FanDuel question of the day, which is that Jordan Love is over under his 3,550 yards. And I was thinking that that's not that many, but he does have some injuries. Where will the Vikings rank in passing yards in the NFC North? BM's got fourth. I think I would go third. Maybe ahead of Chicago, because there's just something cursed about Chicago that they can never get to 4,000. Purple Kool-Aid, the FanDuel question of the day. Although I think the Vikings will improve their pass game, I think they'll be last in the North. Everyone else is bringing back an established quarterback. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I think that if Kyler Murray is throwing for 4,400 yards, it probably means you are losing a lot. I mean, you don't want to be the team that's racking up a bunch of garbage time type of statistics, right? So I think the right place for him is probably somewhere in the range of 3,500 yards for Kyler Murray. That means you were probably winning. You could run the football a fair amount. You don't have to lean everything on him, which feels like that was too much of the case in Arizona. I remember looking at this, that in terms of attempts per game, Murray was in the top 10 in attempts per game over the last 3 years. It's just not where you really want him to be. So establishing your running game, playing defensively, keeping things on track. Sometimes you got to grind it out. I think that those are better situationally for Kyler Murray. VA Viking for the FanDuel question of the day. Second, probably, I think we're all definitely behind Detroit. Detroit's always throwing for 4,000 yards. So probably, or more, probably Detroit would be the clear number one. Packers, I don't know. They like to run the ball. Chicago likes to run the ball. And I mean, the defense, I think, making a really good first impression. But if the defense is only okay overall, then they could be in a lot of shootouts. In fact, if I'm just trying to predict this season right now, I would say, based on what we've seen so far, this strikes me as a 10 or 11 win team that has to win a lot of games in the last 2 minutes. That's what I think. I did. Yeah. Thank you. I look like a mashed potato. I mean, look, man, once camp is going on, yeah, I'm getting a lot of sun out there that I can't handle. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Oh yeah. We've all gotten a little burn. There's probably some people who are more than others, but I've been trying. Even when I put sunscreen on, it tends to not really matter. M. Haas, Kyler needs to calm down with all the hospital passes. I don't actually, first of all, again, you can't do that anymore. So the hospital balls don't really happen. If someone goes up to catch a ball, you can hit them, but you can't send them to the hospital anymore. There's the defenseless receiver thing. That doesn't make it a good pass. It was a very bad pass, but it's just I don't think that that's really what's happening. I think it was just today, but the middle of the field is a thing. Axton, how did Mr. Golday look? I think that every day he's looked like he has been pretty on point and making good progress. Will Reichard's burner feels like Kyler's processing speed wins him the competition. Time to end the charade and give Kyler the majority of reps. I don't need it to be ended today or tomorrow, but I think that if it continues to go exactly this way, like if nothing changes over the next 3 days or into next week or the night practice, because I think if I'm thinking about it correctly, schedule-wise, it's these 3 days, they get Thursday off, and then it's 3 more days ending with the night practice. So if they get to the night practice and absolutely nothing has changed, then it's probably time to just like move forward. John, as a Cardinals fan, Kyler should be pretty good for y'all. The Cardinals just suck. They do. Cade about Caleb Banks. I'm going to need a little more time. I only saw a couple of reps from him today. They looked like kind of not wins or losses. In terms of his mobility and his size, like they look great. But I didn't see any big win from Caleb Banks. Well, he threw a guy, or any big loss where he just got destroyed because he only took a couple of reps out there. Got to give it a chance to build up. B-Flow out there pumping the tires of the rookies, quietly seething is a Quasi. Yeah, I mean, look, if you don't ever draft anybody, then it's hard to have good draft picks. If you trade away all of your draft capital for Jalen Reagors and Cam Akers and so forth. Not that I'm saying all those were bad moves, but that's kind of what happened. Could be the strongest draft, Axton. Yeah, I mean, in quite a while. But even going back to Rick, like they didn't have a lot of great drafts when that's kind of what happened with Kwesi. If we're like telling the story of the drafting in Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, what happened was you come out of a run of really bad drafting from Rick Spielman. In terms of depth, you got, Jefferson and Darisaw, but in terms of depth, not much. And then Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah in the 2022 draft tries to make up the entire difference by trading back, gathering as many picks as he can, but makes a huge error in how far he traded back and what area of the draft he traded back from, which is normally where there are a lot of stars in that top 10 to 14. And there were a couple stars in there that they missed on. Jordan Davis got a big contract. Kyle Hamilton is as good as it gets. McDuffie, is as good as it gets. So they missed out on some really good players there. And then after that, they didn't trust their drafting. They traded a lot of picks, et cetera, et cetera. And you kind of know where it's at right now. But, it was a little bit of an effect that went all the way back. And it's crazy how those things can impact each other. But now, they had a big draft class. And they picked a lot of guys that the coaches liked, clearly. And when people said it was a coach-driven draft, it sounded like that was a criticism. But I thought, well, that's okay, because listen to the buy-in from Flores. And why would there be buy-in from Flores? Because he drafted a lot of the guys. But that's fine. That's not a crime. And you kind of want it to be that way. You want to split the difference between having the front office gather the players that they think are the best for the coaches, and the coaches pick from those players. And when Teasley laid that out, I thought that makes complete sense. It makes complete and entire sense. Mike says there's 100 Josh Rosens for every Sam Darnold. Yeah, I mean, I think JJ's already been better than Josh Rosen, but in terms of some of the stats, it's pretty concerning. But yeah, I mean, but every Sam Darnold. So I was thinking about this today because we talk about it a lot. Alex Smith, Ryan Tannehill. Like there's this whole list, Sam Darnold, of guys who became good. But I started looking up their ages. I mean, it usually takes a while. And what I've seen so far is a guy who has a lot of talent. Man, he really does. And he looks prepared to me. McCarthy, he doesn't look scared. He doesn't look confused. Now, slower on the processing is probably because we have Kyler Murray out there and Carson Wentz. And it's like, oh yeah, that ball is supposed to come out a little earlier. So it looks he's a little slower on the processing than the veteran quarterbacks. But it just is likely to take a little more time. BM, years from now, when everyone is done playing and coaching, I want to hear KOC's honest answer on what he thought. I assume you mean of letting go Darnold or signing McCarthy. It flipped by too fast for me. When I get so far behind, then I can't scroll anymore on my little system. So I'm sorry about that. Yeah, but I mean, like, what really happened? What I wrote after Kwesi got fired is that we'll never really know, because the people who tell the story are all going to have a reason to tell it a certain way. And unless there is like video evidence that someone can leak out and we can actually watch the meetings of them moving on from Darnold and know who said what, but I will always think that you hired Kevin O'Connell for the quarterback decisions. So you could put however much that you want into, Kwesi, and that's fine because Kwesi's responsible too. And he played a big role in that too. And it was, his idea to have the rookie quarterback contract. I love that idea, but didn't ever sound like he was banging the table to pivot and to stick with Sam Darnold. But that takes a whole organization to make that decision. It takes owners are involved. It takes GM, and especially the guy who was coach of the year. So, and when you go back to the draft, they only had two choices. This is what needs to be remembered. Like, we won't know about how he felt about Jaden Daniels. We know how he felt about Drake May because they kept trying to trade up for him, but we don't know how he felt about Bo Nix. What it really came down to, or Michael Penix, what it really came down to is they had two chances at quarterbacks. They took one that was more raw and they felt like they could develop really quickly, as opposed to the guy who was much closer to a finished product. And to this point, the guy who was much closer to the finished product went to a team with an elite defense, played just well enough, had some big moments, had some great scrambles, and got them to the AFC Championship. It was kind of the quarterback that the Vikings needed, considering they had an elite defense, but the ceiling was clearly, I think, higher on J.J. McCarthy from a tools standpoint and from being able to develop him from a really young age. So I think that all of that kind of plays into it, right? That would be some of the thought process. But the issue is they may have missed something. They didn't realize they were going to be a 14-win football team in 2024. I think they thought it was going to take 2 years and they could develop him slowly behind Darnold, put him in, have hundreds of hours of development. Like, there's a lot of layers to this thing that, it's not all just, they drafted the wrong guy. Well, they drafted a guy who in the time he needed to develop the most was not able to do so. And we'll never know how that, would have worked out. Gunja usually take 2 tee shots. Man, I'm hoping to get to 16,000 subscribers before the Ravens scrimmage. If some people step up. Damad said with the super chat, which I did shout out, I think, said, with Murray getting more reps, is that pretty much the sign of QB1? I believe McCarthy just hasn't improved to the next level yet. So as far as today goes, I mean, today was like a very quarterback competition-y day. And overall, when you look at the overall picture, yes, Kyler Murray has still gotten more first-team reps. And in terms of actual first-team reps, not passes, he, I think, ended up with more. But at the end of the day, he didn't have that many first-team passes today, Kyler Murray. And, I mean, they kind of split them. So as far as today, they were relatively split. And if you look at the total picture, Kyler has gotten quite a few more. It's not insane, though, and McCarthy's gotten a lot of passes just in general and a lot of reps just in general. It's been a fairly even split overall. So, I mean, I look at it like they're still clearly competing, and that may change soon, but it might not be in the next day or two. Jay Mull's been saying Bo Richter, think he'll wind up as Dallas's backup. He's a very intriguing player. He really is. He is very unique. This guy is a tremendous, tremendous athlete and played multiple positions at Air Force and is a super hard working dude and has some violence to his game. He really stood out in the last 2 preseasons. Doesn't have the ideal height or arm length, but Brian Flores doesn't care about that. I think he's one of those guys that might be kind of a Flores fit. I also don't think that he's a Dallas Turner prototype. I don't think he's a hand in the dirt. Like, you would have to kind of change things around if you were going to use him in that role. Gunja, recommend all fans go to practice. It was fun. Hard to follow things sometimes because we don't have all the numbers memorized. Oh, yeah. You got to bring a roster. Print out, if you go, print a roster out. It helps a lot, for sure. CJ Ham is the man. Any news on the fullback? Other than, like, he's been out there a lot and he's looked good. He's going to be a part of this thing, man. No question about it. Trade deadline is going to be Christmas by 2030. It could be. Unknown says it's a 7th round pick, but Gavin Gerhardt seems like a waste of a pick. Okay, I mean, I don't know, dude. A 7th. Rather have had them draft Dylan Bell. Well, they got Dylan Bell anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you're upset on August 3rd about a 7th round draft pick not flashing yet, I don't know what to tell you. Purple Kool-Aid, who would be your ideal trade target if they were 7-2? I don't have a name for you. I mean, Vita Vea just cropped up, so him. But I assume he's going to have a new contract with the Bucks by then. But if he is traded to somebody else, then that would leave like that type of position. Maybe not defensive tackle, but edge rusher, or, I mean, depends on your health. I mean, that's a hard thing to figure out. Depends on your health. Even running back, if you're remember when Philly traded for Jay Ajayi? You all remember that. Actually, you guys probably do. But they traded for Jay Ajayi, and they already had a couple guys in the backfield that they could use, but it was just one more guy to be a weapon. That might be something. If you have an offensive lineman who gets hurt or whatever, but I'd be looking D-line. Like, just, there is no limit to the number of D linemen that you can have. No limit. Just keep getting them and rotate them. But that's a little ways down for there. SWAT, the fact that there's still a competition between JJ and Kyler, and both seem to struggle at times, should show that JJ has the potential to be a starting quarterback. Not sure I'm quite following the logic exactly there, but I think what it says is that Kevin O'Connell wants to give JJ McCarthy his fair chance, that he told the world that he was going to have a quarterback competition and he was going to give JJ his fair shot, and that's what he's doing. He's living up to exactly what he said he was going to do. I mean, when you're talking about struggling at times, Kyler doesn't look much different to me than Kirk or Sam Darnold. Like, they both would have mediocre days sometimes, but it usually wasn't a tragedy. And they would both, make some mistakes sometimes, but it wasn't that often. And there were practices that were outstanding, like his was on Saturday. There were practices that were just okay, like today. I mean, that Kyler looks like a pro starting quarterback who's been around for a while but isn't perfect. And McCarthy looks like a young quarterback. Like, if you told me that McCarthy was a rookie, I would believe you based on the early part of this year's practices. Unknown, I think they signed Jamal Adams to cut Ivan Pace. Yeah, I'm not really sure about that. Jim, you mentioned the cap space. How much more could be comfortably gained? You mean like on the team or in the cap? Because I don't know that there's any more that they could make in the cap. Maybe if someone else had an extension and it lowered a cap hit a little bit. So maybe that would be it. But I think with someone like Cashman or Rodgers, I don't know if you're gaining a lot of cap space there. If you trade away JJ McCarthy, you don't have to pay him his guaranteed money, I guess. That goes to another team. So you get a little bit of cap space there, but not much. I mean, look, if you've got $20 million, you can get pretty much any player in the league at that point, because you can restructure, or you can, figure out a way to redo their deal, or they probably want a new deal anyway. So if you got $20 million, you can get whatever you want. Sean, too early, or do you see Bartholomew moving past Urosic? I kind of do. Yeah, I kind of do. If he can block it all, then he probably will. And I liked Urosic last year, but Bartholomew is a pass catcher. They're not going to trade Hawkinson, I would not say. I would be surprised if they did that. Steven, the last few years of less, we have had not adequate draft picks, and now we want to trade away draft picks. Yeah, I mean, I think when we're talking about trades, it's mostly if you wanted to add something at the end of this camp, you wouldn't be trading like big amounts of draft capital. But when you get to the deadline, if you're like 7-2, then you have a chance to seriously go for it, and you should be thinking about potentially moving draft capital. Like, don't hoard your draft picks if you have a chance, because these guys aren't getting younger on this team. Unknown, a lot of the Kwesi draft picks don't seem as bad anymore. Ingram Dawkins, Donovan Jackson, Dallas Turner, Ty Felton, LDR, Jay Ward, Will Reichard, and some others. It's true. And here's the thing. And this kind of happened with Rick also, that Metellus and Bynum showed up right after Rick was fired. Like both of those guys stepped up to the plate. That's why people say you need 3 years with a draft class. You're right that a lot of those players do look at least intriguing, if not good. And it's just that patience is not a real thing in the NFL. Somebody had to fall on the sword after what happened last season. And I also think it was about the belief going into the future because they are going to have to build another roster. But yeah, like a lot of those draft picks have started to show something. MN Vikings, he still picked JJ over Bo Nix. Bo had so much college experience. Now we're benching JJ since he's only 23, having to wait and see if he could turn into anything. That is if you knew at the time that the 2024 team was going to be really good, you would have drafted Bo Nix. I don't think they knew that. I think that they thought they were 2 years away. And then all of a sudden, actually we're really awesome. So they drafted the more development quarterback rather than the guy who was ready to play right away. That may have been different had they known that that team was going to be that good. Autumn Voyage, the Darnold thing is interesting. Seemed like he and JJ were neck and neck before JJ went down. You mean in 2024? No, I mean in 2024, McCarthy took like no first team reps. I think he took 3. The entire training camp. He was doing well. There's no question about it. McCarthy was doing well in 2024. And he was going to get some first team reps during the joint practices against Cleveland. We know that. But I wouldn't say they were neck and neck when Darnold had taken every first team rep from the time that he had signed until the time JJ got hurt. This has been different than that. This has been much more of a competition. VA Viking, does the coaching staff just proceed like Harrison Smith is not coming back? How much of an effect is that whole process, especially when he does not come back? Or do you think they already know? I don't know if they already know, but you just have to go forward as if he's not there. And really what you're trying to do is, Byron Murphy explained this today, you're trying to fill in the gaps with a bunch of guys at once. Like Metellus is going to be the Harrison Smith, but the communication has to be great between a bunch of people. Between Van Ginkel, who talked today about Harrison Smith, is very interesting. Van Ginkel and Byron Murphy and Josh Metellus, like they all have to be a part of this together in order to make it work. They all know the defense super well. It's kind of like a triangle of authority that it takes 3 people to make one Harrison Smith. Really, it's kind of crazy. Michael, have you seen Kyler's body language change between reps over the week? No, I mean, look, he's never going to be a guy that does big celebrations. It's just not going to happen. That's not who he is. He didn't do it in Arizona. He's not doing it here. I don't need it. It means nothing to me. It means absolutely nothing. His body language means nothing. It's to me, the throws are what mean something. We're not in a position to be worrying about that. I mean, right? Like, this team is in a position where they desperately need someone to play good quarterback because if they do, the team can win the division. Whether he high fives people or not after good throws, I mean, it just means so little. These guys are 27 years old. They have all pros and offensive player of the years and all that sort of stuff. Like I don't know. You want somebody to hype up the offense? Have Brian O'Neill do it. It's just not a big thing. Chucky, thank you so much for the kind words. Really appreciate that. Here, okay, Steven, if Jashawn Jones makes the 53, might super chat. Why do you always make it things that aren't that likely, Steven? Okay, so let me just, you guys are strange sometimes. Let's see. Prodes, from footage and reports, seems like Murray's operating out of the pistol or shotgun quite a bit. Think they're doing this because Kyler is accustomed to it and want to see how he operates from there. Yeah. And I also think Frank Smith brought over a lot of stuff from the pistol with Miami. And that is where Kyler has been most used over his career, although he was under center more in 2024. We've talked about that like 23% of his passes were under center, but that's still not a lot. I think they do want to have an improved run game out of the shotgun and out of the pistol, in part because the Vikings' tendencies have been a little too telling. They have run the vast majority of the time they're out of center, under center, and I think that they would like it to be more of the defense can't get a beat on them. Dylan, what do you notice about Jawan Jennings? Is he a capable wide receiver 3? I mean, I notice his size, his hands are very good. He made a great play. When was it? Was it like backpedaling? When was this? Was it Saturday where he made a great catch? He's a natural catcher, and he's very, very big. I don't know if he's like the fastest guy in the world, but I think that he's a clear-cut wide receiver 3 type. He's a starter. So I've liked how he's looked, but we haven't seen a million targets go his way so far. Signature, why is it that KOC expects JJ to adapt to his system? I mean, at this point, if you're in year 3 of somebody's system that has crushed with other quarterbacks, it's pretty hard to say, yeah, the system's wrong. Like you gotta figure it out. I mean, what exactly would you do with JJ McCarthy? Just have him run throw to an out route 15 yards away over and over and over again? Like, I really don't know. I mean, when you're not throwing accurately or making great decisions, there's not some secret sauce that you can use. It's got to be more consistent. Okay, well, look, I'm sorry if I didn't get to some of your comments. I've tried to cover pretty much anything. Jay, Big Citrus sounds very intelligent. Oh yeah, he is. I've chatted with him. Yeah, bright guy. Pros and cons. I mean, the pro for Big Citrus is that he's huge and he has great feet and large hands and is powerful. And the downside is just how many reps can you play him? Because he's so huge. I mean, can you give him 400 snaps? Like, I don't know. But probably not going to be the best pass rusher in the world, although I think he's got a little twitch there. Travis, do we think that Wentz is the permanent number 2 in the sense that JJ will be 3 if Kyler goes down? That's really up to JJ. I mean, if JJ continues to play in camp the exact same way he has for the first 5 days or 4 days, then there's a good chance Carson Wentz will be the backup. A pro is that his name is Big Citrus is a good comment. That's a good comment right there. The citrus interview was great. He didn't look that big next to the Vikings lady. He's not that tall. That's probably why. He is very, very big, trust me, but he is not like super tall. So when you see Caleb Banks, the height makes a big difference there. Eric, is it too early to get overexcited about this defense? No, I mean, I think with the young players starting to emerge, I think that a lot of the things that we've talked about sort of look like they're going to go the way that they want to. Like younger defensive tackles emerging, Jalen Redmond leading that group and getting Caleb Banks involved. A lot more rotational players maybe involved than the last couple of years. But, you know, I mean, you can't get there yet. We got to see the entire offseason. I probably need to see them in the joint practices against the great Lamar Jackson to have some feeling of that. But, I mean, I like where the defense is at, especially, I won't say, I was going to knock on wood and say health-wise, but, you know. Yeah, folks, don't be trolling the chat with fake news. I already dealt with that online earlier. So, anyway, well, here's what I'm going to do. I had a chance earlier. I'm sorry if I missed any of your comments there. You guys did a great job in the comment section tonight. But I had a chance to sit down with Dane Mizutani of the Pioneer Press right after practice and let Dane give his reaction. And he had a kind of a comparison for the quarterback battle. And he talked about the things that he noticed from the first day of practice. So I'm going to bring you that interview now. I'm going to let the dog out. And then guess what? There's another practice tomorrow. And guess where I'll be? Right here with the full breakdown of how it goes. And be keeping an eye on things. And we'll talk about who looked the best and where the quarterbacks went. Because look, you never know. I mean, it can change very, very quickly in a quarterback competition. So we will see where this thing takes us. But yeah, tomorrow night, basically somewhere around the same time, and definitely in the same place. So if you haven't subscribed yet, and hey, the newsletter, purpleinsider.football, full breakdown over there, a bunch of stuff, and going to have a feature on my conversation with Bo Richter as well. So lots going on at purpleinsider.football. Okay, there's all of my shameless promotion. Here's my conversation with Dane Mizutani. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider presented by FanDuel. Matthew Collar here along with Dane Mizutani of the Pioneer Press. And we just walked off the field after the first day of pads. There was actual hitting and football in, and we could actually watch run plays and make something of them, which we can't really do when there's no pads on. So I will leave the floor to you, Mr. Mizutani. What did you think of the quarterbacks during the first padded practice?
Well, I'll start this by saying the defense was ahead of the offense, which is pretty much what we say every first day of pads, regardless of the training camp. It wasn't a banner day for the offense, and that would include the quarterbacks. What I will say is it wasn't an awful day for either quarterback. I think when we're keeping track of this quarterback competition, you want to know, like, good day, bad day. They were both fine. I don't think either guy stood out head and shoulders above the other guy. Kyler Murray the other day, head and shoulders above J.J. McCarthy. Today, he was fine. I think when you look at all of the reps that Kyler Murray took, there were a few good throws, there were a few fine throws, and there was one throw in particular where he almost got Jordan Addison's head taken off, which I would say was his worst throw of the day. Nothing terribly glaring outside of that. Awful 2-minute drill, but that was for both guys. And then J.J. McCarthy, a couple of good throws, one to Justin Jefferson on the sideline, one to Jayshon Jones, layered over the middle. A nice bounce back performance by him, considering how awful he looked in practice over the weekend. So a good sign there. But I don't walk away from this practice from J.J. McCarthy either thinking, wow, what a performance. So I will preface the not a spectacular day for either quarterback by saying what I said earlier, the defense was just better than the offense today. But that's kind of how things go on the first day of pads.
It was also a lot of running. There were not a ton of throws, and McCarthy did start off really well and had a really nice pass to Justin Jefferson, but at the end of the practice, it could not have gone much worse. Yeah. Two of the passes, well, one of the first pass could have been intercepted, and then the third one was. And the second one wasn't accurate either, and it was just a check down. But we're talking about incredibly small sample sizes here on the first day of pads. It feels like there's this little section here before the next off day, which comes on Thursday, where they are going to ramp up the intensity more and more. But I want to know what you think, Dane, about the way that Kevin O'Connell has divvied up the reps. What we saw today was less of a lean toward Kyler Murray, but in the middle of practice, there was an 11-on-11 where Murray took all of the first team and JJ took all of the second team. And then O'Connell puts JJ out there with the ones to do the situational. And that was where he throws the interception, almost in a pick to Isaiah Rodgers, and then a pick to Byron Murphy, where it was completely unclear where that football was even supposed to be going, and was just thrown right into the middle of the field to Murphy as if he was the wide receiver. So what did you make of like the rep split today?
Yeah, the rep split, I can't keep track of it, honestly. Like, it's very confusing to try and go through each day and determine who has kind of the upper hand, because they've been generally like not 50-50 split, but some days Kyler takes more reps with the ones. Some days JJ is taking equal to or more reps with the ones. If we're digging into the reps today, I do think that stretch where Kyler took the longer stretch of during 11-on-11 work, this was not in a situational drill with ones against the other ones on defense, is maybe a takeaway. But I don't think we can sit here and say this is how the reps have been distributed, and that means that either this guy or the other guy is ahead in the competition, which I'm saying all that to say it's kind of frustrating to kind of try and keep an eye on what's going on. And I can imagine maybe there's some frustration from the quarterbacks too, with how there hasn't been a ton of momentum being able to be generated right now. And maybe that's part of a quarterback competition. Maybe that's part of this, is that we won't see separation, and therefore you won't see the snowball effect of I'm really starting to get it in the offense. But the reps have just been, and I know there has been intention behind it. I know the coaching staff has put a lot of thought into this. But from an outsider's perspective, it's hard to kind of discern what the goal is right now because you haven't really seen a full rampway. I say that because Kyler had a great day on Saturday, and then we took Sunday off, and he came back, and my thought was maybe he'll just get a ton of work with the ones because Saturday was so good. A lot of work with the twos today against the twos. So I think they're just probably what it boils down to is we're in the early stages of training camp still. We're in the early stages of this quarterback competition, and that's just kind of how they've planned it to go. But I guess ask me in a week, how do these reps distribute? Because if it's like this still then, I really won't see the vision. I really won't understand where this thing is headed. But I think right now it's just we haven't really covered one of these. We have not covered a quarterback competition, and it feels a bit uncomfortable to kind of try and figure out all of the kind of intricacies that have gone into it.
Well, as a maniacal rep counter, at least especially on the pass attempts, is what I've really been looking most.
Fair.
It does not matter who's handing off to Jordan Mason or Aaron Jones. It has leaned toward Kyler with the first team, but it has not leaned so aggressively, at least today. It did on Saturday.
Yes.
And that's where I wonder about if the sections are going to kind of work this way, because if we look back to the first three practices, the first one was kind of like this. It was pretty close, but Kyler still got more. I think that section where Kyler got 6 in a row would have put him ahead of JJ in the first team reps, but JJ got some early on, did get some work with Justin Jefferson. He got some red zone time with the ones where Kyler actually worked with the twos, and we saw, by the way, an incredible catch by Ty Felton today in the back of the end zone. Absolutely, I mean, that would have been SportsCenter top 10. It would have been highlights all over the place, the NFL main account. So just to throw that out there, I think Ty Felton's gotten off to a pretty good start to this training camp. But that means that Kyler was with the twos, and he has had work with the twos, but it's leaned a little bit on the first day without pads, and then it was a little bit more the next day, and then by day 3 without pads, it was maybe double or more went to Kyler Murray. So I wonder if it is a similar plan for this week, but I do wonder about how long this plans to go on exactly, if they feel like the gap isn't as big as it looked on Saturday overall, or if they've just from the jump, from the offseason conversations with Flores and with, Josh McCown and everybody else who's involved, Nolan Teasley, that Kevin O'Connell decided the way I'm going to handle these first practices is X, and I'm not really going to change it, so I get a sample size, and then after the first 2 or 3 sections of practice, then I will start to go into, all right, this is going to be our quarterback, or this is where the reps are going to go at this moment. But, when it comes to how it's handled, it has been a quarterback competition. And even though JJ has gotten less work with the ones, when you talk about being hard to be exactly sure, I really think the number of total throws has to be pretty close between Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy for the entire practice. So even if it's a little more ones for Kyler Murray, it's got to be very close in terms of actual total throws, which to me says they are treating it at this point like a competition. I was very interested to see myself if we were going to walk in here and it was going to be 90% Kyler, ones and twos, rep after rep after rep like we used to see with Kirk, and that is not how it has gone.
I will say something about like the counting of the reps, where this could have been a day where if we were counting the reps, JJ had the opportunity to get more reps with the first team. It's like Kevin O'Connell said on the opening day of training camp, on that Tuesday before the Wednesday practice, there's nuance to this. There are situations, there are move the ball drills where if you're counting rep for rep, it might end up being a different or a larger skewed number. I'm saying this because there was a 2-minute drill at the end of practice. 1 minute and 15 seconds left on the clock. Offense trailing 13-10. It's what you prefaced. That's an opportunity. If J.J. McCarthy can string passes together, he could have had 10 reps with the ones there. He could have had 12 reps with the ones there if they get a few first downs. He had 3 reps with the ones. It was, like you said, an interception, almost interception to Isaiah Rodgers, a tipped ball by Blake Cashman, a false start. I don't know if we're putting that on him or if we're putting that on the lineman, but a false start. and then an interception to Byron Murphy. That was an opportunity with the ones against the ones to really separate, maybe not separate himself in the competition, but give yourself more reps to kind of draw on moving forward, and he didn't do it. Now, Kyler wasn't any better. He was with the twos against the second defense, and he went 3 and out as well. So nobody separated there. But I think that part of practice in a vacuum does a pretty good job exemplifying there is nuance to this, and there was an opportunity here today, I think for J.J. McCarthy, more than Kyler Murray even, ones against ones. If he would have come out and lit the world on fire in that 2-minute drill, that might have made us go, okay. He didn't. So that's part of it, while also mentioning that Kyler wasn't any better in his stretch with the twos against the twos.
Right. And, I thought Kyler, when he had ones versus ones, I have it written down here, that he had the first pass was one that I see already is going around the internet, where he was kind of throwing the ball up to Jordan Addison, but it was a very interesting coverage where you had Isaiah Rodgers ending up in the middle of the field, which normally would not be happening, but it's Brian Flores, it's his defense, and it was a play action, and so he throws it up to Addison. There's kind of a collision there, which is not what you wanted to see, but that was the kind of ball where you're trying to throw with anticipation. This used to happen to Kirk sometimes when you're trying to throw with anticipation, but you don't realize that a guy who runs a 4-2 is dropping off and then coming into your lane, because what Rodgers did, just to kind of paint a picture here, is he was covering his guy as if it was one-on-one man-to-man coverage. So I think Kyler saw that and then was like, okay, I've got my guy coming underneath. It was basically the same great throw he had made the other day to Justin Jefferson. So he throws it, and then Rodgers lets his guy who's doing the clear out route, he lets him go, undercuts the ball, and that's where kind of the collision happened. Everybody was fine. But when you see that, you go, oh my gosh, like what happened there? And that's the things that Brian Flores does so brilliantly, and also that Kyler Murray does struggle with at times, is when he's throwing over the middle. Like, can he put the mustard on the ball there, or does he want to do that? And can he see these things play out? Because he does need to throw it a little bit earlier than some other quarterbacks when he's doing the anticipation stuff. So, that's just one play that happened, but since it's going around everywhere, when you are running under center play action with Kyler, he was okay at that in 2024, but still I think it's not what he's done for his entire life. So those are adjustments that he's going to have to make as we go forward with this. But I think for the entire practice, Kyler was okay. The last section there was a miscommunication. There was another incomplete pass that may have been behind it. Neither guy really just took the bull by the horns and ran away from the other one on day one. But I think that the way that they structure it is by day 3 of these sections, that's where it should look better. But I also think that the defense is just really good. You have a lot of guys who have come back on the first team defense who have been in this defense before. Even someone like Ty Ingram Dawkins, who keeps getting rave reviews. Like, Ty has been in the defense now for a year, and these corners have been in the defense and that sort of thing. And you have one young quarterback and another quarterback who just got here. And it's the first day of pads, which I recall being Sam Darnold's worst practice by about 50 miles. So both guys kind of had their moments, but neither one of them running away today. So where does it go from here, do you think, Dane? Do you think that would you still say, because you and I were talking about dates where we thought that this would be over, how long it would go on, and after Saturday I thought, well, is my date too late? Because I think I have August 13th or 14th or something. But where do you stand right now?
Yeah, I'm going to stay firm in by next Monday, we'll have a starter announced. It might seem a little early, but because they're off Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, and then there's the night practice on Sunday. But to me, it feels like that Monday, I think they practice next Monday on the 10th. But I've locked in on that day because it was a week after today, which is the first day of pads. I think you should have a good enough sample size by then to make a determination. And then, like Kevin O'Connell said, hit the ground running and try to prepare to win football games, because this quarterback competition is fun to follow. It gets a lot of clicks, it gets a lot of views, it gets a lot of subscriptions and downloads. Fans are having a fun time with it. but it does nothing to prepare you for week 1 against the Green Bay Packers. So if you wait too long, I think you run into some issues. But we're splitting hairs. If it's August 10th, I'm going to be right. If it's August 13th, you're going to be right. I think if it's into the second week of the preseason, then we've reached a part of the quarterback competition where either nobody has taken the bull by the horns or the coaching staff can't decide. Both are bad. So where are we right now? I still think the edge is to Kyler. I've said that from the beginning. What I will say, we talked a little bit about this during practice today. I think people are having a hard time with how to figure out who's ahead in this quarterback competition, and I've seen it almost scored like a boxing match. Kyler lost to JJ marginally in day 1, so JJ took round 1, and then JJ was a little better than Kyler again in round 2, and so JJ has 2 rounds now, and Kyler has none. And honestly, both of those were pretty close to draws. If you want to give the edge to JJ, you can, but I'm setting something up. And then they have a walkthrough. And then Kyler wins round 3. And, Kyler won round 3, but JJ won rounds 1 and 2. JJ's still ahead in the competition. We can't score it like that because how people perform in the practice matters. The way I've been looking at it, and this isn't even perfect either, is like a golf match. A golf match in that each hole matters. For the round 1, or the hole 1, they both parred. Hole 2, if you want to give Kyler a bogey for the day that he almost threw 2 interceptions, fine. Then JJ's at even and Kyler's at 1 over. But in day 3, he triple bogeyed and Kyler made an eagle. So that's how it flips. It can flip so fast, and the way that things are set up and the performance in each practice matters so much more than, this guy won that day, this guy won that day, let's tally them all up at the end. There's so much more nuance than trying to score it like a boxing line.
The way I look at it is a little bit different than that in terms of the competition is which quarterback shows the most proficiency in things that I know that the Minnesota Vikings offense under Kevin O'Connell is going to do. And I mean, when you look at day 2, it's a little bit of an inkblot test because I thought day 2 was easily Kyler being better than JJ McCarthy because completion percentage is not what you're looking for when it's a lot of checkdowns. It's Kyler hit 5 positive throws, and a lot of them were down the field, but he also had several negative throws. But if you're Kevin O'Connell, you're probably thinking, well, let me coach up the negative throws. The positive throws are the ones I can't coach. That's the issue, is that the positive throws were missing from J.J. McCarthy last year, and they've been missing from J.J. McCarthy so far in this camp. Whereas Kyler Murray, if we're just doing the how many guys did you hit with anticipation, down the field, intermediate areas, it's really not all that close. But when Kyler Murray comes off a read like that and doesn't see the other side, where the cornerback is using deception there, I think if you're in Kevin O'Connell's mind, you're saying, okay, well, all right, I'll know that about that concept. We'll coach that up. But it's the throw that's perfectly on point that goes right over the linebacker's head, that's right into Justin Jefferson's hands, that you're like, that's the one that we need to succeed that J.J. McCarthy hasn't made, which is why I would still be leaning just as heavily for Kyler Murray as I have the entire time, that he's going to end up eventually being the starting quarterback. And I think what we've seen here is even through ups and downs, which, by the way, Kirk had and Darnold had. Every year with Kirk, we saw practices that things weren't going their way or things where the ball didn't hit the ground, just like we've seen so far with Kyler. But with McCarthy having an interception that is just thrown directly to the corner where he completely misses something in the middle of the field, well, the middle of the field was an issue for them completing passes last year, right? So these guys, they're not playing exactly on the same course. And I don't know how to actually make a golf comparison out of it because I'm just thinking of it through the eyes of the head coach and what the offense is going to need to do to succeed. It's great to do a high red zone drill where they start at the 15 and we write down every pass, and that's great. But that I don't know how much Kevin O'Connell is evaluating those 2 or 3 throws versus the offense. We also don't know who's more in command, who has the better presence in the huddle, who has more of the mastery of the offense, because we're not even there yet this is still base plays. And I promise you guys who are all videotaping every single play, you're not getting Kevin O'Connell's week 1 offense. I know you're not, because they're going to start doing that stuff when the fans aren't filming every single play and tweeting them out. So you're seeing base plays here from maybe simpler formations and stuff. But that just speaks to your point of how hard it really is from the outside to evaluate it as a competition. But I still don't feel like it is a 50-50 dead even. It feels like they're going to give Kyler every opportunity to win this and run away with it quickly. And they're going to give every opportunity to JJ to at least prove that he deserves to stay in it.
Yeah, if the way you phrased it, that you're looking at the competition as who can run what Kevin O'Connell likes to do on offense better. Paraphrasing what you said. There is one throw from training camp so far where I think we're on the same page about, where Kyler Murray, Jordan Addison runs a clear out route. This came Saturday, and Kyler Murray throws a 30-yard crosser downfield, hits Justin Jefferson in stride with anticipation. It's just like, that's how it's supposed to look. And I think those plays are going to hold a lot of weight when you go back and you watch it, because they have the practice film. You guys might have the film from the stands that people tweet out, but they have all the views and all the angles, and here's who was open. They basically have the all 22 of their practice. That was the play that did not hit with regularity last year. And while Kyler hitting that play on August 1st with no pads over the weekend is different than him doing it on September 13th against the Packers, I can at least say that's what it's supposed to look like. If we continue to coach this up, if I'm Kevin O'Connell, this is what it could look like, as opposed to still waiting to kind of see that kind of throw from JJ McCarthy. Doesn't mean he hasn't improved, doesn't mean he hasn't made good throws, but there are throws, to your point, that just get weighted a little differently. And I think in the evaluation process, that's one I can't get out of my head. I'm sure it's one you can't get it out of your head. And I'm pretty sure it's one Kevin O'Connell can't get out of his head. So those are the ones I think we can kind of continue to look towards when there are plays over the course of the next week or so. Okay, that's how it's supposed to look. How many times do we see that from each guy?
So what else stood out to you from the first padded practice?
I think like the defense looking good matters. But I think when we see the running game hitting and looking different in the first 4 days of training camp, and then we see it today once the pads go on and defensive linemen can get into the offensive linemen and they can muck up those running lanes, and it looked a little stagnated today. It wasn't the continuation of, wow, they're just ripping off a bunch of runs like it was when there were no pads on. Like, that stands out to me because I think we've made a lot about what this running game could look like, and I think it will be improved, and I think there will be intentionality to what they do. But I think there's almost been, and I'm guilty of this too, they signed Frank Smith and made him the assistant coach, and they had a good running game in Miami, so they're going to have a good running game here. I think it could be tough sledding at times. I think what today showed is that they're still learning, and it's going to look a heck of a lot different in a month. But it was almost a good reminder today to see, oh yeah, they're not just going to rip off 20-yard runs all the time because the other team gets to play defense against the offense. Just a nice pump the brakes reminder. I think the running game will be improved. I think it'll look different, but it's not going to be this upward trajectory at all times.
I think, well, it's always hard, right? Because when the defensive line wins the battle, then you're like, hey, that's good for them, right? That's great that they would have a solid performance on the first day by the interior line that we've talked about so much. And there were a few where they got to the outside with Jordan Mason that were impressive, running behind Josh Oliver, running behind Brian O'Neill. And we shouldn't just skim by the fact that Christian Darrisaw is doing everything out there and looks like Christian Darrisaw, because that is an absolutely enormous idea. It was like, oh yeah, he told us everything's fine, let's never talk about it again. But no, I mean, full pads out there, running all the plays, mobile on those plays that they're running to the outside. So that was a really good look for them. But also, Jalen Redmond, when the pads go on, something happens to this guy. Like a light goes on, his eyes turn red. He was dominating again today. And I'll give you another guy to keep an eye on here. We did see some Caleb Banks with the ones. It wasn't a lot. a couple of reps with the twos, but they are clearly slowly building him up in terms of full team padded work. But Levi Drake Rodriguez is the guy who's getting a ton of action because of that. And I thought on the run plays, Levi Drake was showing why they like him so much and why they were willing last year to move on from Harrison Phillips. He has strength. He's got power. He's a really difficult guy to move. And for day one of pads, I think that the interior of the D-line showed that Levi Drake Rodriguez is a developing player. Clearly, they've got some size to add in there. Dominique Orange didn't practice, but that Redmond as a part of this thing is a needle mover where we've kind of talked about, well, they don't really have anything on that D-line, but don't forget they have a guy who earned the right to be on the field full time last year during training camp. And then the first day it happened again. But I wanted to ask you more actually about a different position. If you want to comment on the DTs, if you had a thought on that, but outside linebacker, what we heard from Brian Flores was basically, well, it's up to them, right? Because that's going to be a question, how you assess that, meaning wink, wink, are you signing someone? And I have gotten the sense that it is entirely up to him. Up to them. Of course, it's up to Brian Flores, but I mean up to the players in the outside linebacker room.
Yes, good distinction, because it is up to. I think they kind of did this last year, or they've done this in the past with Brian Flores, where he gives position groups rampways to. I won't add if you don't make me add, but there are guys in that room right now that are getting opportunities to make it so they don't add a third edge rusher. I sat there on your porch and said, they're going to add an edge rusher 3 because they have to. They need another veteran. Well, just listen. Go back to every interview. If you want to just go up to Vikings.com and go to the press conference interviews, whether it's with Brian Flores, we talked to Andrew Van Ginkel for like 10 minutes today. He was great. Anybody else, and they will talk about Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. You wrote about him. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, like he is an ascending player in the league, and he might be. And so far through training camp, and today was the first day with pads, and it's hard to make splash plays as a defensive lineman or edge rusher where he's getting kind of played a lot now without pads. But Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins has made a splash every single day. He's made something happen every single day. He's lived in the backfield every single day. He's a guy that if they play him more at the edge position than D-line like he has in the past, maybe he's a guy who could carve out a niche in the offense or in the defense and make it so they don't add a third edge rusher. A guy like Bo Richter, maybe. A guy like Tyler Batty. A guy like Chaz Chambliss. Jake Golday has been mixing in with the edges. Like if Jake Golday and Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins prove that they can take enough reps on the edge to make an impact, then maybe you don't go out and sign a guy who is way past his prime in the decline of his career, because maybe you do want to have these 2 ascending players who are going to play a big role in your defense down the road have a little more rampway, have a little more license to make splash plays, have a little bit more of reps in their repertoire to become maybe a Jalen Redmond. Jalen Redmond came out of nowhere. Had they known what they were going to get from Jalen Redmond last spring, they would not have signed Jonathan Allen or Javon Hargrave. So maybe there's an opportunity here for people in that room that we have thought, or I have thought, is a little devoid of depth to prove me wrong, and then to prove to the front office and the coaching staff that you don't need to add, we're good here. So something more to monitor as we progress. I'm not going to put too much stock into the first 4 days without pads. That was just interesting to see where guys were lining up. Again, let's talk in another week. If Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins is continuing to ball out, if Jake Golday is continuing to get edge rush reps, if Bo Richter and Tyler Batty and Chaz Chambliss are mixing in, maybe they don't need to go sign one of these guys off the scrap heap.
Yeah, I think if we remember going back, the joint practices in Cleveland were what inspired them to maybe up the price a little for Stephon Gilmore because they were looking at their defense saying, we are one corner away from being really good, and maybe they'll feel that way. But as of right now, Bo Richter was getting some run with the ones, and Tyler Batty mixed in for a couple of reps there. And Richter is an undersized guy, doesn't have the longest arms, is not the tallest dude, but is a great athlete and has proven every step along the way. I asked Andrew Van Ginkel about him, and he raved. Van Ginkel said that Bo Richter reminds him of himself as a young player, which I was like, yeah, I don't see it from a height weight perspective, but I definitely see what you're saying. And he's was talking about how he does all the right things and his work ethic and everything else, but he's also had enough performance for Brian Flores to say, all right, go take a couple of first team reps. And when you have 4 or 5 guys that you're intrigued about at that position, you'd like to see it play out. And this is also a defense that doesn't mind having an undersized guy like Eric Wilson or Bo Richter go out there on the edge because they know they can design things for them to get to the quarterback. Richter played inside linebacker. We know Wilson has mostly played inside linebacker. So those guys can kind of loop or, find different ways they can use a safety blitz or something and then get them free against the tackle. Like, there's a lot of creativity there. The one concern that I would have is if Dallas Turner were to get hurt, there is almost literally nobody else who can do what he does, who is a pure pass rusher, which if you sign Von Miller, then he can do that. And he could be or Hassan Reddick or Leonard Floyd or whoever else is out there. Jadeveon Clowney now off the table. So I understand where they're coming from with it. I do think they still need someone who can replace him. I think they have a lot of guys who could sort of be a pseudo Van Ginkel, but I don't think Golday is a pure edge rusher. That's not what he was in college. He was a versatile type player. So it feels to me like the open competition has been interesting to watch from those guys. Ingram Dawkins is clearly someone that they're very high on, and maybe it would be him. Maybe he would be that guy if Dallas Turner was out, that they would put him on the edge. But even then, he was more of a defensive end, 3-4 defensive end or defensive tackle before, and he still is like 270 pounds. So can you get the quickness and quick twitch enough to just rush the passer, or maybe they're going to design it a little bit differently if, Dallas Turner were to go out. So there's a lot of moving parts to this thing, but it's become really fascinating to me because I just thought, well, they'll sign somebody and that guy will take over. And then, I had a great conversation with Bo Richter today, and he was talking about, learning this defense, getting into it, really fully understanding the details. And if you do, then you are almost there. If you are any kind of athlete, which he is, or any kind of playmaker, if you can get down the details, then you can be, something like that. Give me one more position group for you that you were kind of keeping an eye on today, and then as we go to these next padded practices that are very vital in terms of the ball rolling and everybody making their real first impressions, give me one other group that you're looking at.
Well, I'm always looking at the receivers, but I think with Ty Felton making that one-handed grab today, I am just trying to discern or work through how many reps are actually available for the fourth option in that position group, because I think right now, obviously Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and probably Jawan Jennings are the ones who are going to take a lion's share of the reps. But after that, can Ty Felton make a name for himself? Can Miles Price make a name for himself? Can Dante Fleming make a name for himself? Not a lot of Dylan Bell so far. That steam has kind of died quickly in the summer. But I'm looking at who could theoretically produce as that fourth option, but maybe as that third option too. Maybe at some point Ty Felton takes a leap forward and doesn't necessarily pass Jawan Jennings on the depth chart, but becomes an option that you can use kind of in concert with him. I think Jawan Jennings has a role in this offense. I think he could play a big role in this offense, but I think there's a world in which it doesn't work out exactly like you thought it was going to, and then you're going to need one of your younger guys who are right now jockeying for fourth wide receiver reps to maybe be willing and able to produce as a third wide receiver in this offense. So it's kind of a cop-out because I'm always looking at the receivers. It's kind of a cop-out because you can get things and data points without pads that you also can get with pads. And if we're looking at the pads are on now, which position group are we looking at? Because the pads are on, receiver is not the best answer, but it it's something I'm always looking at, and it's something I think deserves to be looked at because Ty Felton and Miles Price have continued to do things throughout practice to stand out. It hasn't been from them, well, they signed Juwan Jennings, I'll just like go through the motions. Those two are pushing for playing time, and that matters at this point with where this offense wants to go.
Yeah, the depth wide receiver group needs someone to emerge, and Ty Felton is the most obvious candidate here. And I think as the preseason gets going, we're going to start to get a look at those other guys, the Miles Sanders, the Dylan Bell, who's made a couple of catches through the first few days. Miles Price has made a few and then also not necessarily brought in some balls. Just not the most natural catcher, but the third round draft pick from last year, Ty Felton, has been involved a lot. So it kind of feels like they want to use this as a serious development time. Like they want to get him a lot of targets. Well, even Kyler Murray is in there with JJ McCarthy in order to find out how far along is he? Could we use him for something? Could we use him as a stretch the field guy? Could we use him as a get the ball in his hands guy? Do we trust him enough to do that? Or is it pretty much if somebody gets hurt, then it's Josh Oliver and Max Bredesen, and they're just going to go, big personnel and either Justin or Addison or Juwan Jennings, right? So we don't know how that's going to play out yet. I think Felton's had some really, really good moments so far that he can build on, but it's going to have to be every day with a lot of consistency from there.
One more.
Okay.
Third tight end. Because
Gavin
Bartholomew has been balling out in training camp.
Yeah.
And Ben Yurosek was the guy who got the roster spot because Gavin Bartholomew hurt his back last year and didn't play a snap as a rookie. He's like a 6th round pick last year. I don't expect him to come in here and light the world on fire and turn into Rob Gronkowski. But if you just pay attention, if Gavin Bartholomew continues to make plays, and the pads are on today, and he continued to make plays, it was not just, wow, this guy's just a passing camp, underwear Olympics guy who can perform when there is no pressure against him. The pads went on today. I saw him up as an in blocker in the line of scrimmage at times, and I also saw him catching passes downfield like he's continued to do so far. So wide receiver 4, 3-4, tight end 3, like those are guys on kind of the fringe that I'm paying attention to moving forward.
I want to make a very quick statement, and then I have a FanDuel question for you.
Yeah.
Are the Vikings kind of young right now? I mean, really, like a lot of the players, did that happen? Sort of when we were focused on quarterback competitions, because a lot of the players we're talking about, whether it was guys that are getting first team reps, guys that are competing for spots. Charles Deming's got more first team reps today with James Pierre not taking part in the 11 on 11s or 7 on 7s. And then you're talking about Gavin Bartholomew. We're seeing a lot of young players kind of emerge. It's crazy how fast the football team can go from feeling ancient to like, hey, there's intrigue. I'm not declaring them all superstars, but intrigue.
There's definitely intrigue, and I think that's what you want to see early in training camp. Now, in 3 weeks, if nobody in the edge rusher room takes the bull by the horns, maybe Von Miller's back, and all of a sudden that average age gets shot way up because those graphics always make me laugh.
Andrew DePaula is really killing the average age for this team.
If you look at those graphics last year, it would be like the Vikings are the oldest team in the league. It's because they have Harrison Smith and Andrew DePaula on the team, and that just takes a lot of, like, it skews a lot of the data. But all jokes aside, like it has been a solid start for the youth on the team. There was a point in Saturday's practice where on the same rep, which I think went for an interception, batted ball on a JJ McCarthy rollout, batted by Jake Golday, intercepted by Blake Cashman, that Dominique Orange and Caleb Banks were all on the field. 3 rookies with the ones. It doesn't happen here a lot, and it might not happen in a month. But right now, maybe are they kind of young? Yeah, I think they're kind of young.
Yeah, they're kind of young. Okay, here's the FanDuel question for you. From what we have seen through 4 practices, Justin Jefferson's over-under on FanDuel for this year is 1,150.5 yards. Do you think, I guess I was going to say if Kyler's the quarterback, do you think that they can go over that?
Yeah, I think say it again. What is it?
1,150.
1,150. Yeah, he hit 1,000 last year with some of the worst quarterback play we've seen in a very long time. He doesn't hit 1,000 if Carson Wentz doesn't play those 3 games. If you just go back and look at the game logs, a lot of Justin Jefferson's most productive games came in that very short stint where Carson Wentz was just firing him the ball over the middle.
So you're saying that they should play Wentz?
I'm saying it's early and a lot has to happen, and a lot could happen between now or September when the season starts and January when the season ends. But I said I couldn't get that throw out of my head to Justin Jefferson, that 30-yard crosser. I just have an inkling that they're going to be able to throw those if Kyler Murray wins the starting job, that he's going to blow past a number that he didn't come close to 1,150 last year because he barely got 1,000. But that just seems low for Justin. Like,
it does, yeah.
He's been an 1,800 yard guy in the past. He's a 1,500 yard guy with Sam Darnold, and which we know now is top 10 quarterback play, which we knew at the time was top 10 quarterback play. But if you get above average quarterback play, maybe even average quarterback play, Justin Jefferson, I still believe, is the best receiver in the league. I think he can clear that number pretty easily. So I'm taking the over on that just because I believe that the quarterback play will be better this year.
Everything in the betting markets is going to be skeptical of the Minnesota Vikings until they have a quarterback and until he does good stuff. So Dane Mizutani of the Pioneer Press, Matthew Collar from Inside TCO Performance Center. We will catch you when more pads are popping.